I think she's gonna come up just to wave at you with her friend from Cambridge. They've already had dinner. And they've already had a drink. Like some of the, but they have dessert, or they have dessert home, so they have dessert home. And, so they're on there, they're sort of done with that, they're ready to go home. There we go. We have a dog, we'll be all right.
You want?
All right, so who is?
That's in someone, yeah. You going to?
Business council meeting.
I believe we are live on YouTube now.
We're live on YouTube, so I have to watch my language.
Okay, we're live.
No, we have to watch.
Let's see if I can.
Stop working blue.
Pascal gives you my social media
Oh, you want me to try?
verifier.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, it looks like it's working.
Let me check you. Oh, I have to just do, sorry.
Yes.
Is there any, oh, you brought me you marked it up a little bit, there's some changes. Okay, I'll work off this then.
Are you ready?
I just want to look and see who we have here that I want to move up. I got, see, Craig. Who else did we talk about? I talked about was possibly Marcy. Is Marcy here?
He's not in the house, no.
Marcy's not here.
I'll text her and see if she's coming.
Who else did I say I was gonna?
And just hold on.
Is Marie's not here, Craig's here, Don Marcy's not here, Joanne Thompson. Is Joanne Thompson here? Okay, so just Don and Craig. All right. Are we all good? Are we on social media? Are we live on the
Yes.
interwebs? We're good? All right. We got it order? No. We did the pledge. I started the pledge. Good evening, everybody. If you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One of these days, I'm gonna bring somebody to sing the national anthem. Just to surprise you, to really get us off to the right theme, right frame of mind. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. This is the March 14th, 2024 meeting of the Village of Nyack Board of Trustees. We have an agenda. You can find the agenda on the website, which has all the assorted documents that we'll be referring to during the meeting. I did want to ask if anybody, well, I think we'll probably be moving this to the back, but if anybody has anything they want to report on any of the trustees, or I'll give a quick report of a couple of things. We'll start with anybody from the board. Any from the board has something they want to announce, reference, whatever the case may be.
Actually, I kind of do.
Okay, go ahead.
So, earlier this week, I had a meeting with the Fellowship Reconciliation about organizing, an event for the members of the Muslim community in Nyack. So Andy, you received all the requests and everything. I know I was CC'd on those emails, so there'll be more information forthcoming about that. But yeah, that's it. Happy Women's History Month.
And you said it was for the Muslim community, but it's going to be open to everybody.
It's open to, yes, that's correct. I don't want to, yes, it is open to everybody. We do want everyone to be there. It is, we do just want it to be a very community oriented event. So I do want to invite everyone there, and we'll have some more information on that too.
So they asked for April 3rd at the senior center. That
Yes.
date is available.
Yes,
I reported that back to
Okay.
Mrs. Smith, I think.
yes.
And so if the board wants to, you can approve that tonight.
Okay. Does anyone have any?
Everybody else? No. Joe, did no, we don't have, We don't here. All right, just a couple of quick things that I'll just mention. One of them is congratulations to the organizers of the Penguin Plunge, which was a week ago Sunday, which was a lovely event down at the waterfront. It was a beautiful day for it. Everybody was like, oh, it's 55 degrees. It's not a hard day to go jump in the water. The water was 35 degrees. It was still hard.
Yeah.
I did go in. I wasn't supposed to. My son and my daughter were supposed to go in, and then my son disappeared, and my daughter wouldn't do it alone. And so I had to do it with her, and I was actually wearing these pants that I'm wearing right now, which they actually came out okay. It was very cold, and if you're ever gonna do it, I recommend you wear shoes, some sort of sneakers. The ground is very rocky and uncomfortable to walk on, particularly when it's 35 degrees and you're trying to move quickly. But congrats.
Ducks, the little baby ducks.
They did, you could, if you wanted to, you could buy your way out of it, like like when, people would buy their way out of like having a fight in the war, they would pay somebody you could pay a duck to go in the water for you for $20 instead of doing it yourself. So thank you for them. They do a lovely event every year, and they raise money for some kids who are really fighting a really hard battle. So really a beautiful job. It was a great event. A lot of people came down for it. I also want to thank the Rockland Municipal Planning Federation, which just has having their meeting tonight. I went down to the meeting. We have a couple of representatives from our land use boards there. It gives us an opportunity to say how grateful we are for the volunteers who fill up the land use boards in the village and all throughout the county. There was a bunch of people down there talking about and getting a presentation about issues related to planning. I'll also let you know, we just had a very productive business council meeting about 5:15 today before this meeting with members of the Nyack business community. We talked about a number of issues. The notes from that meeting will be posted online. But we have had some very good conversations about, one of the highlights will be that we are trying to bring back First Friday, which we stopped doing during, it's a private event. It's not the village, but people in the village used to have a big event on the first Friday of the month. It involved a lot of art and poetry and music, and we want to try to bring that back. It's a really nice communal event. So we got the chamber on, we got Visit Nyack on it, and the business council to be working on it as well. We also had this week our first meeting of the Nyack Cares Advisory Board, which is the board that's going to be disseminating any of the funds that get raised through the Visit Nyack campaign to give people an alternate to giving money on the street. It'd be to give money to this fund. We'd have signs up, a QR code that you can click on, tap, 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 and you give money to the fund. That's going to go to support services that will help people in need within the village of Nyack. And they talked about how to set up the fund, and we're doing it through Stephen Pappas at the United Way, and he's got that thing rolling, and we should have an opportunity to launch that. I'll talk about that at the next meeting, because we're going to try to launch it sometime in April. I'll be sending around the logo to the board to take a look at, to give me comments back on the foundation for the marketing campaign we'll be doing. And that's all I have. We do have a full agenda. You can see it. I see there's a number of people here for public comment. How many people do we have signed up for? If you do want to sign for public comment, make sure you sign the paper at the front. We're gonna go, we have a presentation first. We're gonna move the public comment after the presentation, and there's a couple of items on the action items that I'm gonna take early for people that are here for a very brief moment, just for us to vote on their resolution. So we'll bring their resolutions up front. After we get this presentation, we have Michael Weber. Is Michael here?
Yes.
Michael, how are you? Hello, Michael. Michael's from the Orangetown Department of Environmental Management and Engineering. As you know, we are all in we are in the village of Nyack. We're also in the town of Orangetown. And I just actually this week, something else I should have mentioned. I had a public coffee with the Orangetown supervisor at Solaniers. Marcello Mazzio was very gracious to host us. We probably had 20 to 25 people come through during the course of the 2-hour morning. Many of them from Nyack, some of them from South Nyack, and some other points in Orangetown. The supervisor, Teresa Kenny, was very gracious and answered questions, and we talked about a number of issues. It was very good, and we talked about the fact that people don't think of themselves enough as being part of Orangetown. The town hall is over in Orangeburg, but we should do more to integrate those services and things like that, and just the communications and whatnot with them. So with that said, we have somebody from the town to give us a presentation on Illegal stormwater connections and sewage overflows. I know that that's what the floor room is from. The floor room is here for the
We'll try to keep
sewage.
it a little easier. We'll refer to it as I and I. Really, that refers to, by the way, Mayor Rand, and all the trustees, I thank you for giving us the opportunity to come out here, speak. When Andy, contacted me a few weeks back, I was kind of excited because I think this is an issue that is really important, not just for the town of Orangetown, but it's very important for the residents specifically here within inside Nyack, considering what we're talking about and what it does cause. And I'm sure that there's some familiarity with what it does end up causing. I&I is inflow and infiltration. So that's all the water that ends up getting into the sanitary sewer system. That ends up being problematic, as I'm sure you get reports from a lot of your residents. When there's a heavy rainfall, there may be an overflow down by the Nyack pump station, down by Spear Street. You may end up seeing other overflows that take place sporadically, and that can sometimes be due to stoppages. But when the rain hits those stoppages, it'll come out of those manholes, and that ends up being a problem for everybody because it's definitely a concern for health, human safety. When you're down there, we have a Nyack hospital that's right nearby, so their sewage goes through the Nyack pump station as well. So those are issues that obviously can impact everyone. When I heard that Mayor Rand was jumping inside the Hudson, thoughts of that end up coming to me as well, because it is a recreational river. Okay, so
Now thoughts are coming to me as well. Something I'd not thought about at the time.
it is a recreational river. And I think that we're all happy that we have such a beautiful waterfront village that's here, that everybody gets to readily access. But there's the issue of I&I, and the issue of I&I is something that is not only a town issue. Obviously, we took over the sanitary sewer system years back. It was under ownership of the village in years back, and the village decided that it was beneficial for the village to have it be cared for by a system which was larger and was able to better administer the laws and I guess the laws and all of the funding that actually goes into maintaining and keeping the system going. Unfortunately, it's also a very old village. We have houses that are hundreds of years old. We have sewer lines that sometimes we end up uncovering that are still brick lined. And those sewers, many of them are abandoned, but we spent considerable amount of money trying to reduce the I&I from the second part of I, which is infiltration. Infiltration is where you end up having broken pipes, you end up having connections which could potentially be coming from the ground. So groundwater seeps into the pipes. We spent upwards of $3 million in the village of Nyack alone, doing replacement of sewer lines, lining sewer lines. In fact, I actually did bring for you guys, and you can keep it, a poster that basically it actually details all the lines that the town has done work on. Just so that the public can also see. So the town has done considerable amount of work, 3 million, upwards of 3 million. That doesn't even include like all the labor that goes into whenever we have to do sanitizing, cleanup, or doing any of the actual spot repairs that end up taking place. But this is specific things that we targeted based upon flow studies that we did. And it did see some benefit, but not to the degree that was necessary to actually stop the problem of the overflows that exist. And that's because what we see is that the instantaneous increases in flow that come into the sewer are more indicative of sump pumps, roof leaders, possible broken laterals that may be crossing under catch basin lines that could be allowing water to directly enter the sewer line. And that is really the leading cause of overflows that takes place. We can see on a dry day, our pumps shutting off on a regular basis throughout the course of the day. When it rains, they run nonstop. And that's just because the instantaneous amount of water that's coming from roofs, that's coming from basements, that's coming from sump pumps that were not connected properly. Because there is a proper way to make these connections. And the proper way is to actually bring it out to the exterior of the home where it's either going to go into a stormwater system, and I do want to make that distinction. Everybody thinks of sewers as sewers. All those little square basins that have the big openings on, that's for stormwater. That's your stormwater system. The sewer manholes that you see in the middle of the street, those are the sanitary sewer system. That's bringing everything from your showers, your toilet bowls, your car washing, if you end up having a drain with inside of your garage. It's gonna take those kinds of things and bring that to the sanitary system. But the amount that comes is really showing us that there are large levels. And we've gone through, we've had conversations. Andy came down last year and we sat down and we had some discussions as what are the next steps. And the obvious next steps are doing investigations to find out where the water is coming from. Because without doing that, we're never going to accomplish this. I mean, how do you end up eating an elephant? You eat it, you know, piece by piece. You're not gonna take it in huge gulps. You're not gonna eat it all at once, but it's gonna take years, even with cooperation from the village of Nyack, to actually see and overcome all of these issues. Because we know that Nyack is looking at some possible opportunities of bringing about adjustments to follow more in line with what the EPA, New York State DEC, the town of Orangetown actually has inside of its code. All of those connections are actually considered illegal connections. So anyone that has a sump pump inside their basement and that sump pump is pumping directly into the sanitary sewer system, it's actually against the law. And there's only certain ways to do that. So Andy came to us and says, what are you gonna do to get rid of the sewer connections? And what we're gonna do is, and what we're here to do is to ask for your assistance in getting to that end, because we want this to be a place that everyone's gonna be able to go down to the park. They're gonna be able to go down to the waterfront. They're gonna go down to the marina, and they're gonna be able to walk through that parking lot without thinking that, I wonder whether that sewage was coming over these rocks. I wonder whether or not when I step out in there, that the fish that we may be catching, I know they post those signs up all over the place and say you're limited to this number of fish, but I probably would not eat fish from certain areas within inside the Hudson just because of the potential that it may have encountered an overflow at some point in time. And that's, I think, a serious issue because it's a social issue that I think actually even touches on social justice, social equality, because we have residents from all over the village that enjoy all of the amenities that the village does offer. And to overlook this as an opportunity basically fights the people that are actually going out there and using it. Now, there is obviously a long process, and the town is looking to partner with the village in assisting with that. It's not something that is going to simply be the village going out and do, but there are methods for the village to be able to play a role within it as well, so that we can work together to get this done. We currently use our camera truck and we televise on a daily basis different areas. We televise when it's raining to see where the peak flows are coming from. We actually go out and we do door hangers. We put the door hangers out into areas where we've seen high flow and we get limited response because obviously people are questioning, well, if I'm not connected the right way, what are we going to have to do? But there is a mechanism that the village can employ, and that is through methods of actual legal avenue of setting in place the way in which to follow the town's code ends up allowing you the opportunity when a house is going to go for sale, when any of those issues come up that may trigger that, including an inspection that the town ends up noticing that there's excessive flow coming out of a lateral from that house. We notify, at that point in time, it triggers an inspection that says, hey, at this point in time, we have right to access because there is, and the town has that right just based upon its code alone, but it's an arduous task to go around to all of it by ourselves. and do all of it. And we do have many residents that have opened their doors and have allowed us to come in, and they've actually made the disconnections and they put things the right way. And then there's also those that you always have that question of when a house goes up for sale, somebody ends up selling that house, what's the next homeowner going to end up doing? And then they sell the house again, and then that may end up being that they ended up going back to an illegal stance that was there before. So we're looking for being able to work with NIAC to overcome these issues so that we can all, I guess, live together in the great town of Orangetown and enjoy those coffees and dipping with inside those polar bear plunges or whatever that we're doing down there inside the river as we're going about.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the cost, the financial cost of this is on the homeowner. I take it.
It is on the homeowner because the homeowner is in ownership of what they have there. Now, they may not have, or they may have created the issue that's illegal on themselves, or when the home was purchased at that point in time, the person that was selling the home did not make the corrections prior to the sale of the home. And the only way of determining that is through an inspection process. And during sales of homes, at that point in time, you end up having the opportunity to have a building inspector go in, ensure that those connections are done properly, and then use those mechanisms to be able to tell the seller that needs to be corrected prior to the sale of the home. And that's actually something that actually works. It's not something that, unless a person is just jumping to run to do it. And there are those that are doing it, because there are many people that have very green-minded initiatives, and this is a very green-minded initiative in and of itself.
If anybody had like a financial burden or needed help, is there anything in place that would be able to help the home?
So there are grants, green water grants, that are potentially available through the revolving fund that they have, and NIAC itself can apply for those grants and become a distributor of those funds at times, depending on the way in which the funds are requested and whether or not those funds have been approved for the state of doing it. Many of the communities that face that are not on the levels of income that the village of Nyack is at. Nyack does have a mid to upper class threshold of income in comparison to some of the areas where people are seriously financially struggling. And that's not to say that there aren't people that fall with inside that here, with inside the village of Nyack
You say
either.
the village itself as an entity.
Yes, as an, yeah.
Can I,
Not the neighborhood
Yes.
stores, census tracts.
well, how much, I guess, would these repairs cost ideally? Do you?
It actually depends on the individual situation. It may be something as simple as redirecting flow from a sewer sump pump out onto the lawn, or out so that it can get to a catch basin that's out in the street. It may be something where you have a person that has a commercial property that's larger and their entire roof ends up being tied into the sanitary system, and they have to redirect the flow off their roof down the side of their building. So there's many different ways of tackling this. They're not all extremely costly, and many of them are you actually save money in the long run going through that. And it also leads into other people that experience other hardships. People sometimes, because of all these illegal connections, will actually have that sewage back up into their homes, because now you're inundating a collection system that can no longer flow and travel the way that it's designed to flow and travel. And then you may end up having your neighbor that's down the street that's getting your sewage into their house because they had an illegal connection. So you're doing it the right way. They have an illegal connection. Their basement fills up with sewage. And now they're basically having that big claim that they're sitting on at that point to try to actually recover. And a lot of times we all have memories inside of our basements that we don't want to just like dispose of inside of sewage. That's not the way that we think, but yes.
A couple of years ago on Broadway, North Broadway, South Broadway, there was a survey, and I think a lot of homes were identified as having this issue. How was that? Did that help at all?
Every bit absolutely helps. I mean, we had certain buildings that over the course of a rainstorm, such as the one that we recently had, would probably reduce about 1,000 gallons a minute of rainwater that was able, just because of the square footage of the size of the roof. So it actually does do that, because our typical flow leaving the station, on normal flow days, and that's with pumps coming on and off, is under 3,000 gallons a minute. So if you're removing 1,000 gallons, then you're ending up overcoming a larger hurdle there. So a lot of those larger properties were identified and that water has been removed, but a lot of the smaller properties are still connected. And that's really, I think, where the tackling has to be faced, is
What
trying
about,
to.
increasing the pumping capacity? In other words, you have a set number, your pumps can handle X of 3,000.
Yeah, well, that's the combined pumps that I'm doing, and the pumps are designed to operate at a rate based upon the 10 state standards, which is basically the law that oversees the construction of it. We're not, the idea is not to allow, because it's illegal to allow that water. That water actually upsets the treatment process. So if I dilute extremely the treatment process at the plant that I operate, at that point in time, I actually kill the bugs because they don't have enough food, because they're just drinking water at that point in time is basically the simplest way of saying it. And that actually puts the environment into even further risk, because now you're discharging less treated water than into the Hudson. We don't often violate permit for any issues of non-treatment, but when high rains come down, such a high dilution can end up actually causing it to force through the system too quickly to be actually properly treated. And that's just going down to a neighboring vicinity where it becomes Piermont's problem instead of the village of Nyack's problem at that point in time. And kicking the can down the road is not the actual solution. It's not the legal solution.
But increasing the capacity of the treatment
plant.
the treatment plant.
Increasing the capacity of the treatment plant would be a burden that would actually be applied to all residents. Increasing the size of the plant, which already can accommodate an average flow of 13 million gallons per day of flow to be treated. However, during a rain event, because of Nyack and other areas, which we are also working with to remove these issues of I&I, we have seen at times that flow go up to 30 million gallons per day, just because of the rain. And so you've gone more than double the amount of maximum flow, and our normal average flow is 7 million gallons.
Is this all coming from,
Seven.
is this all coming from the village? What about South Nyack? What about Upper Nyack? What about?
We're working in those areas, especially now that we also now have South Nyack as a part completely inside of the town's property line. At this point in time, with all government there, we're actually attacking the problem there inside. And does it exist? It does. But the majority of the issue has been noticed and has been measured here with inside the Nyack base.
And they don't have their own treatment center in South Nyack, or they do have their treatment center?
No, the old pumps, the pump station that's on, was it Palisades? They used to be a treatment plant probably 50 years ago. And so, back into the 70s is more or less when what they did was just do preliminary treatment, where you basically remove rags, you remove grit, and then the untreated sewage, the unbiologically treated sewage would just go out into the Hudson River. And that's the way that prior to the Clean Water Act, wastewater treatment typically was.
I think what Joe's aiming at is to say, is Nyack, are the sewers going through Nyack, are they carrying water that's coming from other areas outside the village? Since the
Yes,
village is
they do.
only 8/10 of a square mile, there's gotta be.
Yes, they do, but the amounts of the areas that are there being covered are, and also with regards to Upper Nyack, which is Clarkstown.
Yeah.
Prior to the town taking responsibility for the maintenance, the agreement that we had with Upper Nyack, which we should have done with Nyack in itself, was to do all the grouting and sealing of the lines prior to taking over the system. And they actually did the repairs prior to us becoming responsible.
I do
So
want
you
to,
don't have that much overflow that comes from that area.
the one thing I would, building on what Joe said, is you said something that I thought was interesting, which is that South Nyack is now entirely within the town of Orangetown. It was already entirely. within
No,
the town of Orangetown,
I'm saying government was.
As is,
Except
the government
now
part
our
of
building
South Nyack
department,
to
now
not
our
govern the
building
sewers.
department is the one that actually covers the inspections that go on there. Our
The building department.
the building department. So now when we end up going out, the building department, who is operated now by the town of Orangetown, is responsible for performing the inspections
That's
that
true.
take place there.
Although the sewers are the same. The sewers
sewers are
were
the
always
same.
owned by Orangetown.
Yes, everybody inside of the town of Orangetown, parts of Clarkstown, and even parts of Rockland, New Jersey, you know, they actually discharge to the sewer treatment plant.
And I say that only to correct it because I occasionally get from officials in Orangetown the idea that somehow we are not part of Orangetown.
No, no,
which we are part of.
that's-
And I know you didn't mean it that way. You were talking about the building department. But when it comes to the sewer department, we should be treated exactly the same way that the hamlet of South Nyack is treated, which means that if there are any programs that are being run to assist homeowners in Orangetown,
Assist homeowners in which way? We do not
To assist them
provide,
to-
financial, assistance in
Okay.
regards to.
is there a program right now that you're doing to seek out and replace
We
the,
televise, we do smoke testing, we do dye testing.
who are going and looking for
Yes,
places
we
that are
are
in
going and
violation?
looking for illicit connections there.
In South Nyack.
In South Nyack. Yes, South Nyack is an area that we actually are aggressively going after. We actually put our cameras on the street during heavy rains. We actually televise and examine the laterals. Same thing that we actually do in Nyack as well. And that information, when we end up doing that, we share with the village of Nyack that we have this. When the village is encountering those issues, though, they have a different process for going after those connections than the town does. And so it's to basically bring the village up to the requirement by town code that the village is supposed to be enforcing to begin with. And the village can choose to do that either to the same standard that the town has set inside the code or to a more aggressive standard, but they can't do less.
I mean, I do think that, to go to your point, one of the reasons why this would be something that we would leave to a transaction based, if you were selling your place, you would be an inspection, not, we're gonna go out and look at all the properties now, would be that if the property is being sold, there is hopefully an ability of the homeowner or the person buying it to then pay to remediate the problem, not to go out and go looking for people that own their property that might be unable to afford to do the changes, which I don't think that any of us want to do. I think we'd like to find out more about like what's being done in other parts of Orangetown,
Okay,
in terms of what the program is if there's any, you're saying there's no assistance being given, but there
yeah,
are,
so the town does not own anything more than the mains. And the sewer treatment, the pump stations, the sewer treatment plant, the mains are what is owned by the town of Orangetown. All laterals, all existing infrastructure within inside of the homes are all entirely owned by the homeowner.
by the homeowner, yeah, of course.
Okay, so everything all the way up to the main is entirely owned by the homeowner at that point in time. In Nyack, most of the laterals are much shorter than they are in other parts of the town. I mean, you can go to Piermont where you could end up having a lateral that's 200 feet long. And that very much differs from a 20-foot lateral that somebody ends up having from a building that's inside Nyack due to the added number of individual dwellings that exist inside of the area.
I think that, thank you for that, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you, kind of illuminating us on some of this. And I think I think that's the idea of trying to go out and house by house, try to remediate some of this so that we're not dumping remember, everybody, it's taking stormwater and putting it into the sewer drains, not taking sewage and putting it into the stormwater drains. It's not
Which you don't want to do.
which no one's saying
Back into your
anyone's doing
house.
that. It's just that the stormwater going into the sewer drains is what is contributing toward this issue of the heavy rains of the sewage overflowing. And so that one, the house by house remedy, Joe brings up, are there any other ways to increase capacity that might help this? That's what Joe was asking.
Here locally, there are, the station will, when it reaches capacity at this point in time with the pump station, with the pumps that are there, the sides of the force main that's there, which then travels down to Piermont, there's not going to be additional capacity, and it's not allowed by 10 state standards to increase for the purpose of rainwater, for
Okay,
inflow and infiltration. So if we end up increasing the water going to the treatment plant, one, we end up affecting the treatment plant, which affects everybody, okay? And that affects everybody in regards to if we start failing and violating on permit at the treatment plant because we're taking that rainwater, then we're gonna get fined by the DEC, the EPA. That is going to end up then be obviously distributed to everybody within the side of the town.
other than the capacity issues that come because the rainwater is being, too much rainwater is being funneled into the sewage line.
Mhm.
How is our capacity on sewage without that problem?
On dry days, we, like I alluded to earlier, even on the day during, when everybody's waking hours, when you actually have the higher flows, the pumps are still starting and stopping. It's not like the pumps are running continuous. So the pumps meet the capacity because they're able to.
Because people have expressed concerns about if there was new construction, new residents added, and I'm just curious, are we at a place where if we were to add any more people to the load that's going through these pipes, whether we'd have a problem in addition to the rainwater problem?
No, we have capacity to receive still more connections to the sanitary sewer system. But albeit the honest answer would end up being back in the 80s, the DEC ended up setting a moratorium up to prevent further connection to the Hudson River for sewer treatment plants. And that's why the town of Orangetown's main connection ended up being bought by Rockland County. So the actual outfall line that travels from the town of Orangetown's plant going down into Piermont is actually owned by the county of Rockland, which has a neighboring plant to us. And until the actual issue that, because we do have an order on consent for removal of the I&I issue that we have. And so every year we submit a report, which is accessible on the DEC's website. You can go and see what the town has done, how much has been invested, how much water has been calculated to have been removed at that point in time. We are obviously making headway, but we're making headway at a very, very lethargic pace, to the point where every year everybody is facing the same overflows. And I'm sure that you all have had your constituents come and tell you that they don't like the idea of sewage going there, and I don't like the idea of that. I mean, when this ends up happening, I have to send my employees there to just keep people out of it, because the people may not have always the common sense to do that. And there's the catering hall that's right next door to Spear Street, to the bus station. There are people where the kids go in for their bar mitzvah and they're splashing around inside the puddles during a rainstorm. And we're like, no, get out of that. That's not rainwater. And
You really want to leave us with that image?
I'm sorry, but that's a serious image. I think that
No, that's a good point to be in, yeah.
I think that's the most serious image of it. And it's the same image as you going into that Hudson River to go swimming.
The image of me going into the Hudson River is much, much worse, I think, for
For
everybody.
you.
I have just a question to follow up on what Joe said. Joe asked the capacity of the treatment center for only sewage. Would you say it has 80% capacity, it's up to 80%, up to 90%?
Our design capacity for treating raw sewage on an average basis for the year is 13 million gallons per day average. That's what our capacity would be at 100%. We are at 6 to 7 million gallons per day. So we're at like 50% of what the plant can actually treat.
Okay,
But when the rain comes,
right,
we're not able to treat
understood.
rainwater. So that's unfortunately something is a science that they haven't developed a treatment system to do that just by by all state standards. If we had an activated sludge plant, we'd be even in a worse boat because it would just wash everything
All right,
right out into the Hudson.
thank you. I don't want to keep you here all night. Any other questions? Yeah, comments?
So the policy concept on the table is one in which the village trustees would consider a law that would require homeowners to certify that they do not have an illegal connection under certain conditions, whether it's the sale of a house or spend $100,000 on your house, whatever it is, would trigger, you'd have to hire a plumber, and they would have to prove to Orangetown Demi that the sump pump goes into your lawn, not into the sewer line, and your roof leaders also are similarly disconnected from the sewer. That's the law that I think it was New Rochelle passed that our village planner alerted us to a while back. And, you know, over the years, as those construction permits or sales came through, bit by bit, houses would be certified as properly disconnected. It is a burden to homeowners, and that's something the village board understands well. But that policy would incrementally address the issue that hasn't been able to be fully remediated through the smoke testing. There's reasons why smoke tests don't always go through if someone's got.
Because even in an area as old as the village of Nyack is, there were laws that have now been implemented, or code that has been implemented that prevents P-traps on the bottom of the drains that are going into the line. Many of the homes that are here actually do have a P-trap, and if it has water in it, smoke won't even come out through that to your leader to see if the roof leader is connected or not, because there's a P-trap in the ground that's preventing the smoke to actually pass through. So the only way of then testing it is to actually add water to the leader with dye and then look to see where the dye is coming out. And that's why I'm sure everybody remembers around St. Patrick's Day one year, we ended up turning the Hudson River green because we were doing some testing of the leaders at that point in time. And it was actually beneficial in two ways. There was a comment made earlier that there's never any sewage going into the stormwater. And myself and the public health engineer at the time were actually walking through the culvert of Nyack, looking at
It's a new business for the end of the meeting. We don't need to keep for that conversation.
And I don't know if you want me to hang around for anybody that may have questions during the public comment.
Well, what we'll do is if people have questions, let's do them now. We won't do them in public comment. We won't have a separate public comment. While you're here, just stay up here. If people have questions, they can stand up and ask the question. Go ahead.
It's not a question, I just wanna, there's a lot to take in.
Yes.
How are you? Nyack had a green infrastructure committee talking about this at least 10 years ago. It was in the green infrastructure plan. It's in the Nyack climate action plan. And we're ready to, Nyack's ready to step up and address the problem with that, whatever new updates, I think, you're presenting here about how to deal with this, because we know it has a lot of facets to it,
It
right?
does, including your climate smart. It actually, just think about it. If the pump is running 50% of the time at the Nyack pump station, the electric consumption, when it's running 100% of the time, goes up dramatically. And these are large pumps. These are 50 horsepower pumps, 75 horsepower pumps that are actually running to pump the sewage to town large town.
All right, any other questions? I know John had one.
Yeah.
I'll take questions.
Yeah, quick question. So the actual choke point, is it the Spear Street pumping station, or is it further down the line? Because what we see sometimes in Nyack is not just spills at Spear Street, but also you see toilet paper overflowing at the manhole cover in Memorial Park, which would suggest that there's
There has not been, and actually the line from near Memorial Park actually goes to the pump station. It's not after the pump station. Everything that leaves the pump station is a force main. So it actually is pumped under pressure to its destination down in Piermont. I have not received reports of recent sewer spills. I know that there were in the past, and we actually determined that there were some blockages. At that point in time, inside that line, which the town ended up doing cleanings on to remove those blockages. And since then, we haven't had anything reported to us. If you do see a sewage spill, please feel free to call the town of Orangetown. The sewer department will respond and take a look at what's going on there and ensure that we're doing everything that's needed to be able to prevent it coming out there as well.
And my second question is, I'm looking at, so you guys did the work, was it 2018, 2019 when the I&I work was done?
We've been doing also work since then as well.
Right.
So there's been additional work.
So,
The majority, the bulk of the work is done.
because just looking at the data, in 2018, there were, for the entire year, there were 5 SSOs overflows. And it just seems like we've already had that many this year.
And
So-
take a look at the rainfall amounts that you had between those years as well. We had 1 month, January, which was over 5 inches of rain that fell.
So the question is, the problem's getting worse and it's not getting better.
Because as climate changes, we're going to have more rain, okay? So that's even furthering the reason why it needs to be directed properly, because obviously the more it rains, the more then it's going to come into the sewer system until those disconnections are.
Thank you.
All right, Carolyn, and then I'll ask if anybody has other questions. We'll ask Michael to go to the back and
Sure.
people can go talk.
I don't want to interfere.
directly. Well, just because I don't want to, we were at 45 minutes and I want to make sure we have other things on the agenda. Yes, Carolyn.
Quickly, I know that sort of the talk, the sanitary flow and the storm flow and the thought that a lot of the storm flow is coming from the leaders from combined systems. I'm wondering, what do we know about infiltration just through the leaky pipes? I know you've been doing some
So
work to
for
seal
the
things up,
mains,
but I
the
didn't know.
mains and you can, feel free to look at that later and you can see the mapping that we've done. The mains that we actually did all of our flow analysis on prior to and after, those have pretty much been, accomplished at this point in time. That does not mean that laterals may not be. There could be clay laterals, there could be other kinds of brick lines on some of the older houses that are still coming out of individual residences or individual buildings that exist inside the town of Orange, inside the village of Mike, yes, town of Orange now.
I mean, would that be worth doing, like getting a grant or something to do some, analysis to see if. how
From
much
the
of this-
grants that I've seen, and I'm sure that investigations you can actually do, typically those grants will be given so long as when the
I'm not
village
putting up.
is administering it, it can't be money that's just given to individuals.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at
So
is
the-
trying to get a sense of
Yeah, the
like,
money is.
how much is
probably
leaders
be
and how much
as
is
low- They can probably be
infiltration.
done as low interest or no interest.
Yeah, I'm not so interested in the grant per se as sort of funding, it's just technically would it make sense to do an analysis of some kind or some kind of testing to get a sense of the range of, how much of it is leaders and how much of it is
Until inspections
infiltration.
take place, and without inspections actually taking place, it's kind of hard to know whether or not the leaders are. Like, if you notice that your leaders go right out onto your lawn, they're not the problem. If you notice that your leaders are going down into the ground, they could be the problem. If you have a sump pump and you see that the pipe, and I wish you guys had a projector, because I actually had some pictures to show people what they could look at for inside their own homes. So I did bring some pictures that you would be able to see. There are ways you can easily see whether or not they're connected or not. Some of the older houses you can't see so easily because they go into brick walls or they go into stone walls, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on the outside of it. So.
All right, I want to thank you again for coming down. We really do appreciate it. If anyone else has questions for Michael, can you stick around in the back to, behind the doors to take those questions? He'll stay, as long as reasonably to take some of your questions. My Marcy's leaving to take questions. Marcy's one of the people I would bring up. I want to take, first thing I want to do as we get to the rest of the order of business is we have to approve the minutes of this week as well as the minutes of, do we have two meetings worth of minutes to approve? We don't. All right, so just the meetings of February 8th. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of February 8th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I do want to take a few items out of order. One of them would be for Marcy, but Marcy is now not in the room. So we will start. I want to, Dominic Pilla, who's item 7, there's actually 2 items 7.3s, but he's the second one.
Sorry about
He
that.
is the resolution 2024-42. I want to take that out of order just because I want to give an opportunity for some of the people who are here for items that we should resolve in relatively quickly to be able to not stay through the whole meeting. So Dom, you mind coming first if we have any questions? Can I get this motion on the table?
So moved. Second.
This is a motion to waive a renewal permit that Dom had for the building that he built up 145 Main Street. It's right next to the corner of Main and Franklin. He put on what, a second and a third story on that?
Third
Resident, third story, was it? Okay, third story and a roof, above, the True Foods or one of those, organic. In that process, there were some delays with the, that were not his fault with regard to the construction, which is what made him late and needed to get an extension of the building permit. We generally do not do this. We have the authority to be able to do it under the village code, which allows us when someone's building affordable housing units, that we can waive certain fees. In this case, I did submit that we should waive the $3,500 fee for the building permit renewal in light of a couple of things. I think the principal one to me, there were a couple of things he did. They're not in the resolution, but there were a couple of things that happened with the building. Beyond the fact that he did some really nice environmental things with the building that was not necessary, like electrical rather than gas-fired heaters. He has a green roof, but he also put the utility lines underground. And putting the utility lines underground really does help the aesthetics of the area. And that was what caused a lot of the delays, because you needed approval from.
That was the big one.
That was a big one with regard to that. So we don't want to set a precedent that we routinely waive the fees when someone is doing affordable housing, because they need to do affordable housing whenever they build under our code. There needs to be a percentage of the units for affordable housing. But I do think, and that's why I did try to get this on the agenda, I do think that Dom did a really lovely job with that building. He paid about $25,000 or so. It was the total amount of fees over the course of the
Total fees was 32,000.
32, okay, so you paid, so this would be about, of that 3,500, we'd be waiving the additional fee for the renewal. And I think that, I don't want to set a precedent. I want to make it clear that this is an unusual circumstance because part of the delays were from the fact that he did put the electrical lines underground, which is what occasioned about 6 months of the delay, which is what caused him to be in this circumstance. But I would support the motion and any other comments or questions.
I agree with the explanation, and I think, Dom did a service, basically, and, O&R, it's not his fault, but O&R dragged their heels on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've seen him quite a bit. Thank you for being patient and keep coming back to us. And I think there were other delays and things that you're waiting for as well, so.
Andrea?
No, no.
All right, call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right, Pascal opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Dom.
Thank you.
The next item I want to bring up and take out of order is, it's not a resolution, but it's on the agenda is 9.5. It's to get either new business or communication. Craig Smith, Craig, come on up. Craig is the director, founder of the Phoenix Festival, which has been run for the last 2 years. And I don't think we don't have a motion or anything, but he does want to bring the Phoenix Festival 2024 to the village. It's mostly been located in Upper Nyack because that's where they have the Marydale Field that he's been doing for the outdoor performances. But he wants to use he would like to use the lower level of the park. Obviously, we can't because we're gonna be doing the work there. He wants to do the upper level of the park. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what the plan
Yeah,
is?
that's right. We have done the festival in 22 and 23 and 24. We would like to do some performances in the Upper Memorial Park. They would be free performances, and they would be Shakespeare that would be done. The days that we are looking at are September 14 and 15 and September 20 through 21. And any combination of those will be fine. If it's one, if it's two, if it's five, that would be good. We have to reach out to the company that will be coming in that's doing this. It's a New York City-based company, and they do Shakespeare in the Park. They're just wonderful, and we would like to do it, and I think it would be good for the families. It's a simple request like that, and that's what I have to say.
So what are the dates that we're looking at?
How are those days?
September 14 and 15.
Yeah, no, I don't know if anything else is planned.
20 and 21 and 22 on Sunday.
That's right, and we will people, it'll be free, but people will need to register with us because we want to be able to make sure that we keep control over the number of people that are there. And then if there are people in the park from the village who happen to be there, we're not turning anybody away.
And it would be for the whole day or?
It's, what's the time frame that you would need? Because I know you have to set
A
up.
daytime, they'd be daytime, so it would most likely, in daylight savings time, I think we could go as late as 7 o'clock. But I think we're looking in the weekends, we would like the families to come, so most likely it would say about 1 o'clock to 7:30, somewhere at 7
So it's
o'clock,
most of the
something like
afternoon,
that, yeah.
to the early, okay, but not the morning. And this, just give me the dates again, let me just write those down. It was the 20th,
September 14 and 15, these are weekends, and September 20 through 21. 20 is a Friday, right?
20th is a Friday.
Yeah,
But not Sunday the 22nd,
say what?
not Sunday the 22nd.
Yeah, Sunday the 22, right?
Sunday the
Yeah, I mean,
22.
Originally you had asked for that as well.
Yeah, Sunday the 20 through 22.
So
including
Friday,
the
Saturday,
Thank you,
Sunday.
Andy.
Here's my thought on it, is that when I originally just said, I just don't, I love the festival. I've been a big promoter, I've been on the board of the festival, I think, full disclosure, I've been on the board of the festival. I think it's a wonderful event, I think they've done an amazing job with it. I can't say enough nice things about it. And I'm very thrilled that they're gonna bring performances into the village. It's tough though, without having the lower bowl, which we probably won't have by September, we might, but probably won't, to give up the entire park to the event for 2 consecutive weekends, and the Friday night. So, my thought was, can we, what, if we were to say, well, we can't give you both weekends, would it be better for you to do 2 consecutive Saturdays or do like a weekend and then not the next weekend?
We'll work with any combination that works for you. It won't be a problem. So we can have people, they can come in and do one performance of it. It would be nice to have more than one so we can get some word of mouth so people come back. But we can work with any of those days, yeah.
Not more than one performance a day, you're saying more than one event, more than one day.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think, what are the thoughts? I'm wide open on this. I think it's wonderful, but I recognize the strain it will put on the park.
I agree with that. I think one weekend might be, like, I like the idea of like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just like all at once. That way everyone has one weekend, you have multiple times to see it, and then like, that's it. That's kind of how I see it. I do worry about.
So
2
20,
weekends.
21, 22 is what you would suggest.
Yeah, that's what
but
I
not the
would think.
weekend before.
Yeah, also,
Maybe
there
I'll-
seems to be a number of applications for the park during the summer. And it's on the agenda that we're gonna be talking about. So it seems to me there's a lot of activity that we're pushing onto that small section of Memorial Park, the upper section, which basically,
What do you have on the agenda that's
there's
the,
a church loop.
Oh, that's a.
Just Berea Church,
that's the
Berea Church is on the agenda.
Well, to Joe's
For
point,
July.
I know last year we did have a lot of requests to do things down at the park for, a bunch of different hours. We, a quick wedding ceremony, there was drumming,
Yeah.
there's just been a bunch of different things. So I do
always
also
done that.
worry, yeah, I know we've always done that, but I do worry about with the limited space that we have, soon we may have to reseal that top field. I don't know.
Exactly, I mean, that's the problem. We're
Yeah.
putting too much into a small basket. It's just a question of, and it prohibits the general public from utilizing that area.
What are the chances the lower bowl is ready to be walked on by then?
I just don't wanna try to set it.
I'm not, what are the chances, percentage?
By late September, I would say the fences are gonna be down.
So it's possible by then that we'll have the lower park open. And remember, throughout all this time, basketball courts open, playgrounds open, water feature will be open.
I guess to me, that sounds like to me that even if the lower park is open, I would feel more comfortable still using the upper field.
No, I think for this,
Yeah,
I think the
yeah.
upper, I think we said it for the upper field, I was just saying that we would not be taking over the whole park if the
Right,
lower field was open. Are you okay with that weekend, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
Is there any other activities,
There's no conflict.
There's no conflict.
Not for that space.
Another thing too.
The only things you guys have, you got Berea Church on for a date in July.
but they wanted 2 days.
Yeah, it's 2 days. Is one is an event in the basketball court and an event on the upper lawn.
Right.
Then you've got the Native American gathering, which is approved, and you've got African American parade kind of rallying down there and having their festival in the street.
Can we get a calendar of,
I can give you a calendar.
everything on the
yes.
calendar so we can fit in?
And we have the music in the parks on Tuesday nights.
Yeah, so far, we don't have an actual application for music in the park.
They just.
That would be Tuesdays in July.
Yeah, Tuesdays in July.
Yeah, so.
But you know, that's the other thing. I know towards September, doesn't it get a little lighter in terms of
Yeah.
requests that we
Yeah.
get? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's true, yeah.
So,
I like Pascal's idea of doing it on having one weekend where we have, one set compact weekend where we have the Phoenix Festival in Nyack. We can promote it that way. They can do Friday, can lead into Saturday, can lead into Sunday. And, the park is available in the morning on both days. Friday night's not a particularly heavy night for the park anyway. And Sunday they'd be done probably early, 5 or 6 o'clock, so people don't use it at night. I think that's not a bad idea. I like that. I really want them to have it. I've been asking them for 2 years to come to Nyack, so we finally came back, and then I'm like, oh, I don't know if we have the park available, it's so busy. So is everybody, we don't have to vote on anything, but is everybody kind of good with that, so we can set up a resolution? for next month?
Yeah, no, it's a good idea, Pascal.
So we're good on that? All right, so we're looking at the 20th to the 22nd,
That sounds great.
that weekend, and we'll get a resolution for next meeting.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks,
everybody.
everybody, appreciate it. Marcy, why don't you, we're taking out of order a little bit, just to, you can come
what was
talk
that?
about. This is item 7.3, the first of the 7.3s.
Community solar.
Jennifer,
I gave you an extra page.
are they here as well? Or is she here for that?
That's what she's here.
Oh, she's here for that, I thought she was here for the other,
What's the
the
other? page?
consulting proposal, 7.3, the resolution
Okay.
on the consulting proposal.
I just thought that I was here because there were two community solar things that might need to be kind of clarified.
We will do that in a second, but first I'd like to get a motion to put the resolution 2024-41, which is item 7.3 of the agenda, put that on the table.
Second,
All right, that's a resolution of the board to accept a consulting proposal from Marcy
Right.
to provide sustainability coordinated services. We've talked about this at the last meeting.
Yeah.
We all are very grateful for the work you've done. And you can no longer say that we never gave you anything, because we're actually gonna finally give you some measure of small compensation for the amount of work that you've put in and the amazing job that you've done. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
No.
I think we're all in agreement that we're very grateful for all the work you've done all this time. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, you're here for, this is a resolution, if we have the second page, the separate page is resolution 24-45. Since this is Marcy also, we'll keep her up there to ask about it. Can I get this thing on the table?
So moved.
second,
All right, this is a resolution of the Nyack Village Board of Trustees to approve the Nyack Community Solar Initiative. Why don't you give us the 1-minute pitch as to what this is about?
Okay, so the community solar initiative would be the scoping plan for the,
This is the one where Upper Nyack and Nyack combined forces to try to find village residents who want to subscribe to a community solar way of getting their electricity.
okay, so community solar is something that's been out there for a few years where people who don't even have a roof to put solar on can get some credit for supporting local renewable power in New York State. In our case, for the community solar plan that we're proposing for the Clean Energy Communities Program, let's see, we would partner with our dual community power our dual assets power partner. Who, oh, this is always so
I can
hard.
do it. But
It's, yeah,
the bullet points are basically Jewel, which is the group that brokers the aggregated energy product that the village is already enlisted in. Also provides services to help find community solar producers that people can subscribe to as individual households. You can do that even if you're already opted in to the community aggregated, which the village adopted already. It just means that instead of getting 100% renewable, do that, you're getting it from a solar project somewhere upstate. People can save money by doing that. It's a subscription thing. They have to choose to do it. They don't
It's
get
an
opted
opt-in
in by the
program.
village.
It's not like this community choice aggregation, you would have to opt in. And that's sort of the key thing, because that means that the Climate Smart Committee
Has to go out and
in
find people.
Nyack and the Green Energy, the Green Committee in Upper Nyack are planning to team up. The villages in Upper Nyack and in Nyack were planning to propose to do this teamwork effort, a campaign to educate people in the community about how, why and how they can do this opt-in program for getting these credits on their energy bills or electricity bills to get community solar. That's the proposal. And ask me any questions.
It costs the village nothing. It provides a benefit to people who pay for electricity. If the village board supports it with a resolution, it gets us a few points closer to being eligible for more grants from the state for energy sustainability work.
If you have solar panels, can you still opt in?
I think you might not be able to.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure, so we could clarify that. Just to let you know, Peggy Kurtz, who is lives in Upper Nyack. And is like our super advocate locally, is also working with Jewel, the administrator of our CCA, so we can get a quick answer for that. And so I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Who's, how does this credit work? So if you opt in and you'll get a credit on your electric bill?
You get it on the entire electric bill. It's both sides, the distribution and the actual, like,
The actual generation,
yeah.
okay.
And it's not it's not like having solar where you're just like, that's your solar power. It's just a credit.
I understand.
So it's a way that way to support the solar farm that's set up in New York State.
I think most residents would want to know if they opt in, how this entire program will work to their benefit. I understand the overriding, green energy, the solar energy and it's very important. But bottom line is how will they benefit from it?
Right.
And that needs to be communicated, I think, a little bit better. What do you think would be the typical rate or cut that they would get or rebate that they would get from the electric company?
So it has been 10%, and it seems like it's looking sort of downward towards 5%. We have a scoping document that we've prepared for NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities Program to show, which is something that they promote. This is an action that's promoted by that program.
Right.
And so we've outlined this, we meaning Nyack and Upper Nyack have outlined a scoping document to show how we propose to communicate the questions, you're asking about to the communities in both, Upper Nyack and Nyack, about what they get out of it, the money.
Right.
It's a small discount over time, and people have to opt in. And then the other benefit is that if they feel like they want to support the expansion.
Right, that's a whole separate,
Yeah.
right. Is it worthwhile, there's a resolution here but I'd like to see
The financials,
What's that?
the financials.
Not the financials, but the, information sheet, that you said you would be, developing with the Upper Nile.
The pitch sheet that would be going out. to
Well, the
residents.
scoping document is, you have, right? You have the scoping document. We have a scoping
You
document.
call it the scoping document?
It's
Yeah,
basically the plan for the initiative, like how the group will promote the opportunity to village residents through the library and through social media and using Jewel as a partner and so on. But she can provide that to you easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should see it before
Yeah.
we.
I'm fine to defer this. Do we want, did I put this on the table or no? I forget if I put this on the table when we were writing to, I did. If you wanna put it off to next meeting in the meantime, get some more information. Is Upper Nyack acting on the show?
they're working on it this week.
Okay, so,
We developed the scoping, just to clarify, the scoping document is something that NYSERDA, Clean Energy Communities Program, asks for us to submit to, prior to doing a campaign. NIAC already has 2 campaigns going
Right.
with the
all
same.
I'm asking is there any prejudice to this effort if we put this off for 2 weeks?
What?
Is there any prejudice to this effort? Is there any impact to this effort if we put it off for 2 weeks till we get to our next meeting?
I don't think this one actually, we do actually have some things that we're trying to do really fast, but I think this one probably isn't really.
Well, Upper Nyack hasn't done it yet. We're supposed to do this in conjunction with Upper Nyack, right? All right, so I don't know when their meetings are, but why don't we put it off for 2 weeks so you can get the information, make you more comfortable with it? I think that he just wants to be assuaged that this is gonna be clear and not gonna be confusing to the village residents. Everybody else okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
You're fine with it, but you're also fine with waiting 2 weeks.
Yeah,
We didn't get this until right before the meeting. so it's not as if we
Right,
all had
so,
time to
right,
do
I'm
this.
just-
I just want to say that
Either way, I'm fine.
I'm totally with you because there's 2 things that are in front of you right now. And they're both called community solar, but one of them's for the municipality and one of them's. for
Yeah, the
community.
municipal one is not in front of them right now.
Right, but it will be, and it's really.
We'll take it together. We'll take it all
Yeah.
together.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah,
so I'll bring that up for next meeting as well.
That's why I was a little bit confused about this,
Mhm.
this memo coming in.
Okay.
All right, Marcy, you have 1 for 2. You did it.
I'm really happy to meet with anybody individually to help you,
Okay, thank you for that.
advocate or understand.
All right. We were supposed to open the public hearing at 8. We can open it anytime after 8,
That's correct.
but we will open it,
It's already,
Can I
it's
get a
already
motion?
open to continue to.
We're continuing, so we don't have to do anything, any formal.
What I mean
motion.
is, you've already opened it, and you just continued
Continue
it,
it,
so this public hearing has been going on for the past 2 weeks.
How many people do we have for public comment?
It was never closed, so.
How many people here are here for public comments on ETPA? Raise your hand, so I can see how many there are. All right, so, I just want to make the point, because this might help some people. Where we stand with the ETPA is we have in front of us a resolution. The resolution is to accept the vacancy survey that showed, I think, a 6.3%. It's resolution 2024-40, it's 7.2 on our agenda. The resolution came up with I don't know where the number is, over 6%. It needs to be 5% for us to declare a state of emergency. So at this point, we can't declare a state of emergency. The motion would be to accept the vacancy survey. What I would like to instead do, I'm suggesting to our board today, would be to continue this public hearing for, not to the next meeting, but to the meeting after that, to continue it for another month. We said we were gonna do an investigation into the vacancy survey results. We've not had the time to do that. We don't really have staff dedicated for it. We're also trying to confirm exactly what our rights and obligations are in terms of ascertaining the accuracy of the numbers. I would like a little time to do that and get a little leeway and not have to run back in 2 weeks and do it. So what I'd like to do is propose to continue the public meeting for another, till our next meeting on,
I think it's April 8th.
it would be
April
April,
11th.
the public hearing until April 11th.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Will you be here?
Oh, should be.
Are are you okay if we continue, when you're not gonna be here, we want us to continue it to the 25th?
I'd rather you do that if you can.
All right, we want to continue to the 25th?
I'm cool with that.
If we have something we can do in the meantime, we can do it in the meantime, but
Okay.
we'll continue the public hearing to the 25th. Is there any reason we can't continue it for 6 weeks?
You can continue as long as you like, except the survey results may.
Well, they're a snapshot in time, they're a snapshot in time. Yeah.
So, not much longer than 6
Okay.
weeks.
All right, everybody's okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, do I need to make a motion to extend the public hearing for,
Well,
Let's say,
it's
can I
nice to
get-
have the consent of the board,
Right.
sure.
can I get a motion to extend the public hearing until
Public
April
hearing open.
25th? Keep it open. So
And
moved.
continue it to, did you say the date, time, and place?
April 25th, April 25th at 8 o'clock PM Thursday
Village Hall.
in the Village Hall.
That's good.
The motion's on the table. I got a second? First and a second, all in favor? Okay, we will still take public comment now. We can still take public comment.
So it's the public hearing will remain
It
open.
remains open, so it's still open. All right. I will open up for we have public comments on any topic. I'll take the public comment. We'll do on the ETPA first. For people, some of those public comments, I will just let you know, we're continuing the hearing. If you have questions about the survey and about that, just realize what we've done now is we are going to be looking into the results of the survey to make sure that the survey is accurate. And we've given ourselves a little bit of time to do that. In the meantime, why don't we start calling out for they didn't write down what they're here to speak about.
They did.
Oh, they did, okay, then call out the ETPA people first.
I'm here.
Hello, how are
Yeah,
you?
3 minute maximum. How many people do we have total?
I'll be very quick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, okay, 3 minute maximum.
All right, so my name's Amir Lamir.
Can we, actually, I'd rather not have the address, but can we ask when people introduce themselves and the village or town they live in?
All right, so I live in the village of Nyack. My quick question is, how can we keep the answers of the vacancy information truthful and honest? Since there are a lot of deviations in the concept where fudging the numbers. Fudging the numbers is a common thing for certain individuals. So how can we keep the integrity of that accurate? And how can we also submit evidence of the fudging of numbers and also of illegal aspects going on to keep it under hush hush?
You referring to the survey?
Double checking the survey.
So,
We're-
yeah, inconsistent.
We're not gonna talk in open about it right now, but we're gonna be looking into it. We have a number of avenues that we're looking at. We gotta determine whether it's within our authority to be able to do it. And also what would be effective in trying to make sure we narrow it down. Not that you've made an assertion that I don't necessarily know is true or not, but we just wanna make sure the survey is accurate.
Well, I'm just putting it down as a safety hazard besides everything else that we were talking about. Because anything can happen and that building is some of these buildings that we have here in Nyack are very, very old. And they can easily go up in flames just because of the wrong people working on it and also fudging information and nobody knows that there's something that's going on in that complex or not. So I just want to bring it to attention and keep the village on point on pressing all the landlords across the board, the good and the bad. As I said 2 weeks ago, we have good landlords, we have bad landlords, but it's how we dissect and find out who are being truthful or who are not. All right? And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Samir.
Taylor Vandelbaum.
Hi, I'm here for a plethora of issues, but I'll focus on the ETPA and come back. Before that, it is unrelated, but Jen, I want to actually thank you for two things. And I wanted to make sure it was a public comment. First, you've been really responsive with FOIA requests and, oh, sure, I'm sorry. Jen has been really responsive to not only FOIA requests, and we really appreciate that, but also I had a personal issue dealing with some property tax issues, and I actually had a mortgage official go out of their way to say that they just had a wonderful experience working with you and it made our life easier. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you for the work that you do. It's really appreciated.
Right. Now, I'm just gonna clarify, it's 3 minutes of public comment on, we're asking people to talk about the ETPA. But if you have multiple topics, it's not 3 minutes per topic, so it's 3 minutes you get.
It was
in the
worth
meeting.
it. It was worth it.
But I'm giving you,
Yeah.
I'm giving you a dispensation. Anybody wants to come up and compliment our treasurer? That is free time. You did not get that counting against time, so I'm starting the clock again. For you
Perfect.
now.
Okay, really briefly, I just wanted to echo the sentiments for the ETPA that I had mentioned at the previous board meeting and also in meetings prior, that not only, to keep in mind the impact on the tenants, which I know you're all aware, a lot of them are coming up on leases and they're worried about whether or not they can renew. But also I wanted to explicitly emphasize the questionable results from the vacancy study, which y'all are kind of, again, I think you're on the same page with us about. It is definitely problematic. I don't understand how we can have increased vacancies between kind of the December vacancy study and the recent vacancy study, given how real estate tends to work in the winter months. It's fundamentally questionable to me. It could be true. It could not. I lean towards the latter. Obviously, I am a little bit biased, but I do know something is a little bit fishy about these numbers. So anyways, I just wanted to appreciate that. I hope that we continue this vacancy study and potentially find new ways and effective ways to go into these buildings and figure out what's truly vacant and immediately rentable. Because at this point in time, I'm concerned that the landlords are taking advantage of an ambiguity in legalese and language, which is giving them an advantage for the ETPA, preventing ETPA from being enacted in the first place. So, thank you.
I'll save the rest of your time if you want to come back up. You used about half.
We'll find out.
You used about half of it. All right, next.
Nancy DeJelka? Hello.
Nancy.
Yeah, hello. So I definitely wanted to speak about the validity of the survey and to let you know that we have documentation at Riverview at 197 Sickles that 4 out of the 8 apartments that were supposed to be considered vacant, it's an absolute lie. And we have documentations that we're going to be submitting about those. Along those same lines, and I said this last time was, I had a FOIL request also about the apartment, and I was given very minimal information about the inspections that have been done. And I'm requesting again that a full inspection be done of Riverview, irregardless of ETPA, but it needs to be done. We had a fire inspection and all I received was like 5 or 6 notations about vents. This is a building that had 3/4 of the apartments renovated without permits, without certificates of occupancy, without inspections. And it's really, really past the point of ETPA or anything. Now, ETPA will help to oversee some of this, but for this to be going on this long and for us to be sitting in an apartment where we don't know what went on in the renovation next door and when there has been a fire, it is absolutely ludicrous. So I've about had it with waiting for things to happen. We can at least do an inspection, validate what this landlord is telling us, which are lies about how many vacant apartments are. The one next to me, my friend just moved out 2 months ago. It hasn't even been touched because I said to them, you can't do anything without a permit. So there's a lot of things going on there besides the ETPA that need to be looked at. And I'm asking you again to please provide all inspection reports, go back out, inspect those apartments, find out the illegal apartments that they have, and then add that to what you're going to consider a valid survey. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ruda?
Hi, I'm Ruda. So I'm just here to ask you to, validate the survey because we know that there's discrepancies at our complex Riverview. I know the apartment next door to me was totally demolished about a month, 2 months ago. It's still sitting there, so it's not available for rent. So, if you guys could verify everything, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Borstein?
Good evening. This is not time for talking about why ETP is needed. We're past that. No, dude, I believe it's the time to talk about the need to verify. I thought we agreed at the last meeting that there was a need to verify. As far as I know, nothing has happened in terms of verification in the past 2 weeks. And I just have questions. Number one, in terms of verification, does the village have specific ideas that it's going to pursue in terms of verifying the results? Number one. Number two, and on that score, if the village could put something on a task force, a group, landlords, tenants, interested parties, to talk about what is going to be done and when. Because I don't want to come back here in a month with, at the last second, we're trying to do this or that. There should be an effort. It's going to take at least a month. And we should start sooner rather than later. Number two, will there be village staff? Is the village staff available to do this work? And if there isn't, how can we explore alternatives? I could find volunteers who would conduct the verification. Depends on what it is and when it's going to be done. And there are some very concrete questions, but my main question really is, does the village believe that there are legal ways to verify the results? The results, I believe, obviously are too important to just let stand right now. Is there a way that the village can see right now to verify those results? Because I'm not going to belabor that this study without verification, to me and many others, is simply meaningless. I could go on about why, but that's not necessary. I thought there was an agreement last time that there was going to be verification. And I think that's where we are. And the question is, what do we do? I know that there is a position that we can't enter buildings. We need to discuss all that. I don't have an answer to many of those questions, but I would like to be able to participate in the process to figure out what can be done and when. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for ETPA.
Okay, oh, come on in, yeah, I know you're here for that. Yeah, state your name and where, and your village or town.
Okay, so I'm Christina Farrell. I live here in Nyack at Riverview Apartments. I think the village needs to go back to verify the survey. I believe our landlord reported 8 vacancy apartments and is incorrect. I have a Ring camera in front of my door that shows that apartment across from me. They've been working on it nonstop, and I've been told from the super that it's finished and it's vacant and that somebody can move in, but clearly I have pictures to show otherwise. And then I believe that if you guys can do something as far as knocking and trying to figure out, to get through this, because our place definitely is lying. As far as, let's see. And then I have somebody who told me that Upper Nyack has a code enforcement officer. Does Village of Nyack have something the same? Should we, can we get him to probably get in process of this too?
The issue is the legality of whether we can enter into a property for the purpose of checking whether someone's present in that unit. That's what we're trying to ascertain.
Okay.
And it's not a simple issue. When we talk about the staff, that it's not, we're not, realize what you're saying is, hey, why doesn't the government go knock on someone's door using the authority of the government to find out who's living there and what they're living? That's not, there's such situations where that would seem to be a very uncomfortable thing for government to be doing. I understand here, we're doing it for all the good reasons, but everyone always thinks they're doing it for good reasons. So it's not something that we can do lightly. There are things we can do short of that, that are not as intrusive, that we've been trying, that we'd like to do. We just haven't had enough time to do it because and when I referenced before staff and then Alex brought up the staff, we don't have people dedicated who would do this. We would have to be taking people who have full-time jobs doing other things and say, okay, we need you to now look at this. And it's not that easy to reallocate staff that simply. And whether it comes to doing volunteers, I'm not so sure that we can deputize people to do these things and have it be something. We want the vacancy study to stand up to legal scrutiny. We don't want to do it past ETPA and then 6 months later it gets tossed out because the vacancy study, we only got to 5% because we did X, Y, and Z, which is not valid. But I'll let you continue, because I know you still. you have time. I don't wanna
That's
take
fine,
it.
that's basically what I need to say, I just want, hopefully within this month till the next meeting, we can really, verify who's actually vacant and who's not.
Yeah, hopefully we will. That's 6 weeks, yeah.
April 25th.
Right, yeah.
I want to thank you. And I do want to say all five, virtually everybody who's done public comment here tonight on the ETPA, except for Taylor. I met with them, was it yesterday? Was it just yesterday? The days fly. We met yesterday in this room for about an hour and talked about some of these things, and I am very grateful for their activism on this issue, and they've been, I'm very grateful for their activism on this issue and for constantly, continuously making sure that we're staying on top of it. So I appreciate that, and I'm grateful to them. All right, public comment on other issues as well. You have something about that? All right, quick.
Is there any interest in part of the village to have other people involved in the verification process?
Maybe. I don't know yet.
You let us know.
I will, of course I will let you know. If I'm going to have other people, you're the first person I call.
Thank you for that, but others are also interested. Thank you.
Okay.
Andre?
Hello. I'd like to just request once again that the board, the trustees, mayor consider. I'm sorry.
Your name and what village or town you live in?
Andres, and I live in Naya. Andres Alves, and I live in Naya. So I'd like you all to consider, I think the ceasefire resolution was passed on to you all. I hope you had time to read it. I'd like you all to strongly consider passing it as a town immediately, as soon as possible. It will send a very strong message, and I think it represents Nyack very well. It's a request for a ceasefire, just demanding peace for a grave injustice that we all are probably watching live. So I highly hope that you all consider it. I'd like to just also announce that just as a few hours ago, for the 5th consecutive day, Israel has massacred starving Gazans waiting aid in the Kuwaiti roundabout. 30,000 people are there desperately in need of aid, and they were gathered waiting for food, and they were gunned down by an Apache helicopter, machine guns, and drones. 60 people have been martyred, killed, murdered, and over 200 are wounded, with most of them being children. It's far away, but it affects us here. Many people here. I met a Palestinian person. I haven't spoken to him since November, and he works in Nyack. And at that time, he lost 30 family members just in November. This much is based here in Nyack. When I first learned about Palestine a few years ago, I started posting about it, sharing about it, because that's what I do when I see an injustice. And it's the first time in my life that I was called anti-Semitic. Never been called that before, and I am not. I talked about the World Health Organization, Amnesty International, and even B'Tselem, human rights organizations that are international. B'Tselem is from Israel. They all found Israel to be an apartheid state. Israel and Zionists claimed that they were all anti-Semitic. Recently, Jewish director Jonathan Glazer, who won an Oscar for his film about the Holocaust. In his speech, he linked the atrocities and hypocrisy of what Israel is doing to Palestinians. He stated the film shows where dehumanization leads to its worst. He stated, "We stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people." Zionists online immediately called him anti-Semitic. I don't know if I can ask you a question here, but do you feel that our call for ceasefire is anti-Semitic?
What was the question?
Do you feel that our call for ceasefire, asking this town to pass a resolution for ceasefire, is anti-Semitic?
I have a personal opinion and I have an opinion that would be expressed as the mayor of Nyack. I'm happy to give my personal opinion, not from this chair. I'd be happy to talk to you after the meeting, about whatever personal opinion I have, but when I'm in this chair and I'm speaking for the people of the village of Nyack on issues that don't relate to the administration of the government of Nyack, I try to stick to the work that they've asked me to do. Which does not include, as I expressed to you last week or last meeting when we had a conversation about it, does not include making resolutions that relate to issues that are not within the province of being the village government. And I say that with absolute respect and respect for you and respect for the people that are here about this issue and the respect that for your passion for your cause. Absolutely. And it's not a statement at all about the substance of that position. It's just a statement about my particular responsibility here. You have a few seconds left. I'll let you finish up.
That's very disheartening. Unfortunately, many politicians in this town do speak up, but only for one side. And we're always called anti-Semitic, we're called terrorists. And this is why it's important, because as it stands for Nyack, it will send a message that you're standing for good against the genocide, and you are saying that it's okay to be for a ceasefire. It is not anti-Semitic. It is actually a good thing. You represent the people who also support a ceasefire. And the idea that calling for a ceasefire in this time in any way is a bad thing and does not represent Nyack, I think, and I hope we change that soon, because it is devastating.
Why the town couldn't pass a resolution like that to call for a ceasefire? Why is that?
Because as I explained last week, I'll explain it again, that the village of Nyack elected me to manage the affairs of the government. And they elected the trustees to do the same thing, of the government of Nyack, which has it's a limited responsibility. I do not speak for we do not have a foreign policy. We do not have a policy on issues that do not directly involve the village. And I say that with absolutely nothing with regard to the substance of the request that's being made to us. I've said before that if the request had come from people who have a position that's contrary to yours, I would have the exact same answer for them. And that is not the responsibility that's been entrusted to me to be the mayor. And I know that other jurisdictions, other municipalities have passed resolutions. That's their decision. But the decision I'm making, and I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for myself, but if they want to say something, they can say something. That's not what people hired me to do here. And I think
There are never resolutions or anything else.
as far as I've been here, we've not passed resolutions on issues that do not directly impact the village and I. We don't, the so-called symbolic or message resolutions, we've not passed.
That never happened.
It's not happened during my tenure here.
But other people's tenure it has happened.
I don't know. I think in the history of Nyack, lots of things have happened that would not happen right now. I'm going to call next person for public comment.
Mara?
Hi, I'm Mara. I'm also in Nyack too. So we went around Nyack on last Saturday, I believe, and we only reached 32 businesses, but out of those 32 businesses, only 4 of those businesses did not support a ceasefire resolution. I know that's like very limited in scope and like our sample size is very small. I think it's just worth noting that, you know, a ceasefire is very much something that a lot of your constituents really do appreciate. But yeah, so I guess I'm also here to hopefully get you guys to maybe, you know, look into and hopefully vote on a ceasefire resolution. If one side can deprive the other of electricity and internet access, perhaps war isn't the right word for it. If one side comprises of 47% children under the age of 18, maybe the word is not war. And perhaps, sorry, who The fact that Israel has the capacity to cut off electricity, food, fuel, water tells you all that you need to know about the power dynamics of the situation. Joe Carlin, you emphasized last time that we only get to see part of the issue.
What's that?
You emphasized last time that we only got to see half of the issue. And you're
I
right.
said there are two sides to the issue.
Yeah, so one part of the issue.
Okay.
Okay, so you're right. We only are considering the aspect of the situation after October 7th. But the root cause of this conflict stretches far behind recent events and traces back to 1948 with the Nakba, where thousands of Palestinians were killed and displaced due to political theories that led to the formation of modern-day Israel. When the representative from the Jewish Federation mentioned Hamas had a ceasefire before October 7th, it's crucial to recognize that this ceasefire was unilateral and conditional. The ceasefire before October 7th is actually a sugar-coated way of saying there was peace because we were able to kill Palestinians in silence. But from the year 2000 to 2020, at least and on average, 1,500 innocent Palestinians have been killed by Israel. It truly feels like I'm living in a fever dream to hear people lecture me, a child of colonization, lecturing the children of colonization, the children of apartheid, that see that we essentially don't know what we're talking about, as if this was the first time we have ever seen this. We're being gaslighted in ways that I cannot comprehend. The issue is straightforward. On one hand, we have Palestinians who simply want free, sorry, I'm almost done. They want to live.
How do I stop this?
They want to live on the land and they want dignity. And if you ask them to show you where their ancestors have been buried for hundreds of generations, they can point it out. On the other side, you have Israelis who will tell you that God gave them this land. This is their belief, and that this is their belief. To what extent do Palestinians have to participate in the reality? Because I never knew God was a real estate agent. That's it.
How many more we got?
I also like to speak and I didn't get so many.
All right, we're gonna, in the interest of time, it's 10 after 9. If anybody else wants to talk on this issue to make the very passionate, and I understand the perspective, but we have to cut public comment down to 2 minutes per person, just in the interest of not running this thing till 10:30 again. So everybody else, and I apologize to those of you who have not yet gone and say other people got 3 minutes. We'll give you 2 minutes from here on in. All right.
Rhea Matthews?
Rhea, thank you for your emails.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm here today to urge the village of Nyack to take a stand and support a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The horrific genocide and resulting humanitarian crisis in Palestine is not a distant geopolitical issue. It's a test of our commitment to the principles of democracy, human rights, and international law. Our call for action is not unprecedented. Other cities in New York State, including Newburgh, Ithaca, Albany, and Beacon, have already passed resolutions in support of a ceasefire. These 4 cities join over 70 cities across the US in arguing that local actions resonate on a global scale and contribute to a wider call for peace and justice. By joining these cities, Nyack can demonstrate that even our small communities have a significant role to play in advocating for liberation. Numerous reports by human rights organizations, as you all have already heard today and 2 weeks ago, such as the United Nations, Amnesty International that my colleagues have mentioned, have documented how policies and actions of the Israeli government have consistently violated the rights of Palestinians, including illegal occupation, settlement expansion, and disproportionate use of force. These are not matters of opinions, but documented violations of international humanitarian law. Calling for a ceasefire is not taking a side. It is standing against settler colonialism, standing against occupation, and standing against most importantly and most currently, genocide. I want to highlight as well that this has worked before. Communities, cities, and states coming together to take a stand against injustice is what ultimately dismantled South African apartheid. Cities, states, and universities committing to boycotts, divestments, and sanctions created vital international pressure that ended the racist and oppressive regime that was South African apartheid. Today, NIAC has the opportunity to support a ceasefire resolution and be part of ending genocide in Gaza immediately and permanently. Thank you so much.
One more question. Let's say there was a petition of people in NIAC, and there are thousands of people wanting to pass this resolution. Would you reconsider?
No.
There is a petition. Oh, well, if there were,
The answer is no.
huh? Why is why?
If they don't think, if they would like someone to take action, there's an election next November and they can vote somebody else in who they think would agree with and take these message resolutions, but having a petition doesn't mean anything to them.
Very lame hands.
Dustin Hosner?
2 minutes, Dustin.
Thank you very much, members of the town board. I'm speaking against the ceasefire resolution. I think has been expressed in what has been said so far by a number of speakers, and in looking at the document and what is and is not said, it takes responsibility of the entire conflict and what is going on with the Israeli military. It says nothing about the brutality of Hamas. It does not ask for the freeing of the hostages. It does not point out that Hamas has not allowed for free and fair elections in Gaza for the Palestinians since 2006. It does not highlight a lot of the atrocities that Israel is fighting against. I would say to you that, sorry, this is a very personal issue as it is for a lot of people who are speaking this evening. One of the beautiful things about being a part of this community is the ability to have these conversations. I'm concerned that the passage of such a resolution would not heal anyone. It would simply expand a divide that already exists. It would lead to more people speaking on anger about which side they believe they're on. It won't bring unity. It won't allow for the expansion of voices to be heard. It will not benefit, I would say, not only the village of Nyack, but I would say it would create more challenges in Rockland as a whole. I think the resolution has a very clear nuance to it, has a very clear narrative. I think it should be much more expansive. I think it leaves out a lot of information and historical facts. The conflicts that are in that region have happened and have existed for well over 1,000 years. We could be here all day going back and forth about the different fighting, the different attacks, and so on and so forth. My question is there a way to try and bring people together? Is there a way where voices can be heard in a way that is respectful, that is a way where people who are dealing with real trauma, as was pointed out earlier, whether you're Palestinian or whether you're Israeli or whether you're Jewish and have people who have died. I've spoken to hostage families. It has been heartbreaking, just as many people here. So I would hope that you would not support such a resolution and that there could be much more constructive alternatives to finding ways to bring people together in regards to this tough and difficult time. Thank you, Dustin.
Mitchell?
You pronounced it completely correctly. Well done.
That's quite rare. On February 25th, Aaron Bushnell set himself on fire outside of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. His last words were "Free Palestine," and his final Facebook post, which had been written earlier that day, was, "Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery, or the Jim Crow South, or apartheid? The answer is you're doing it right now. In the face of a genocide funded by by American tax money, supported by our military and implemented by the Israeli government and military, to state that we should just go somewhere else and that the voices of this council does not matter, I think is erroneous. And despite American involvement, despite that those of us who have stayed informed on the issue have basically been mourning for 5 months straight, despite the fact that Palestinians, including members of my own family and their allies, are in a state of grief and trauma that I would never wish on anybody. Multiple councils in multiple cities, including in New York, have passed permanent ceasefire resolutions, and there's a precedent, even if it is unorthodox for NIAC. I would say that it is quite acceptable in this county to show support for Israel, and I'm not saying that no one can't. But I would like to point out that seems to be very, very controversial to show solidarity with the victims of what is clearly established as a genocide and apartheid. And it really shouldn't be that radical. We've seen history repeat itself over and over, and you know, I don't want to see in a few years very weak apologies and regret at what is happening right now when we can actually raise our voices right now. This village council, you represent the voters of this village, which means that your voice has quite a bit of power and quite a bit of people behind you. So I think that even though it might be unorthodox or unusual or may not be what you were hired to do, I do think that it is incredibly valuable that you support our ceasefire resolution, which will then be passed up to higher channels within the federal government and to our other elected officials. Thank you.
Peter?
Hello, my name is Kader Humaid. I am a resident of Nyack. I live in West Nyack. I'm Palestinian American, so I have first-hand experiences with living under occupation. And I came here in 1990, and I really love being in Rockland County. I love especially Nyack, the cultural capital of Rockland, diverse, multicultural, open society. And it breaks my heart. It's been 150 days since I've slept. And I'm an anti-war person. I'm anti-war against anybody. And every day we allow this genocide to continue. We're hurting people. And I'm worried not about this war, but the war is going to be after this war. So if we don't stop it right now, what do we expect? What do we expect? I'm not asking that. You guys are not the United Nations. You don't make or break things. But this is a symbolic gesture. An act of kindness, an act of humanity to support people who need support. Just to say we care about human beings of all types, every human being counts. And not to dehumanize people. This is what we're asking for. We're not asking for a resolution to change the world, it's a symbolic resolution to say we care about human beings, all human beings. Thank you.
Elizabeth Roberto? Roberts, sorry.
Hi there. I'm also here to support the resolution. Israel aims to empty Gaza of all Palestinians. This is not up for dispute. These aims are spoken about openly by their elected officials and citizens alike. Children are being killed at the rate they were killed in Auschwitz. The scale of destruction, loss, and suffering is unfathomable. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in December reported the percentage of Gaza's buildings that have been damaged or destroyed already had surpassed the destruction in Cologne and Dresden. It is now past the level of decimation Hamburg experienced in that war. Over 80% of homes are gone. The entire civilian infrastructure has been irreparably damaged or destroyed. The International Court of Justice in The Hague found that South Africa made a plausible case that Israel is committing a genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Anyone who's paying attention to independent media or social media even can see this. About Face, which is a US veterans organization, since October welcomed 188 new members in the 5 months prior. They welcomed fewer than 20 new members. US veterans understand this is a genocide and not a war. As a Jew, I am desperate for my voice to be heard. Israel is engaged in state-sponsored terrorism, supposedly in my name, but Zionism is in fact the largest danger to Jews. Israel's crimes make Jews less safe everywhere. Zionism has never spoken for all Jews, and speaking out against Zionism has never been anti-Semitic. Zionism is settler colonialism. Zionism is white supremacy. There is no kinder, gentler Zionism. Zionism is apartheid. All Zionism has ever been is land theft and ethnic cleansing. International law and the morality of all decent people require a final end to colonialism everywhere. It is now very fair to liken Zionism to fascism and Nazism. You wonder what this has to do with the Nyack Village Board. If the US had not joined in the fight against the Nazis, wouldn't it have been incumbent upon the people in every municipality and to press every elected body to speak for them against those atrocities, for the people to press every municipality? Israel is planning a ground invasion against hundreds of thousands of unarmed Palestinians in tents.
Israel is using starvation and disease to exterminate the population of Gaza. Children are dying of starvation and dehydration, and the escalation in death from outright murder, the intentional strangulation of a captive population through disease, withholding of food and medicine should alarm and horrify you. I would imagine you'd welcome the opportunity to join your voices with all people of conscience around the world, that you would take advantage of your special position, having a public audience and the mantle of leadership, and speak out against these atrocities. Readily,
Sorry, you're out of time. I'll let you go for a moment, but please wrap up.
readily denounce mass murder and vengeful bloodlust, and call for your community to join in standing for the end of the slaughter of people who have lived in desperation and under unspeakable oppression and violence for over 75 years. It felt a lot less like 2 minutes, but I know it's because it's hard to hear.
No, I'm sorry.
That is it for ceasefire. And then we have one
I'll be
unrelated.
here for sorry, I wasn't here on time. Thank you so much. Hi, y'all. Mary Ann Hunkin, Nyack resident. I'm in support of the ceasefire. The situation in Gaza, as everyone has already spoken to, is dire. Palestinians, in addition to enduring a constant bombardment, are now starving to death. This is annihilation. It is genocide of the Palestinians. It's a humanitarian crisis, and it is urgent. And last time we saw each other, I talked specifically about the NIAC budget, and you'll see that I sent a FOIL today asking for the specificities of the budget. Specifically, I'm asking for an itemized line-by-line budget for the village of Nyack. Thank you, Jennifer. For the years of 2018 to 2023, an itemized line-by-line budget for specifically the serial bond section of the debt section of the budget, and the names and entities that have issued those serial bonds. You'll remember that I said last time we saw each other that on October 13th, our comptroller announced that the New York Common Retirement Fund purchased an additional $20 million in Israeli bonds, bringing that number to $267.8 million. So our money is already funding this genocide. Our tax dollars are already going to Israel. We are already complicit in this genocide. And so what we are asking for you, we're inviting you, you're as our representatives. Mayor Rand, you said you're here to represent people in Nyack. We're here, we're speaking to you, and we're asking you to hear us. And we're asking you that if you're feeling or experiencing discomfort, to ask yourselves why that is, and to get curious about your discomfort, because whatever discomfort anyone in this room is feeling is nothing compared to what the Palestinians are enduring right now in this moment. Families have been decimated. Children are starving. If you think it's a symbolic gesture, so be it. But asking for a ceasefire sends a message to the rest of the world that where we live, that our representatives that we have elected don't stand on the side of genocide, and that you stand with humanity and people. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Skylar. I'm from the village of Nyack. I spoke last week, wasn't planning on speaking this week, but did want to check in, as last week I proposed that the town sponsor a vigil honoring the victims in Palestine, same way that flags were hung. I recognize it was a different board, as other members of this current board have pointed out. It still happened. The town supported a vigil in honor of Israeli neighbors here and abroad. A lot was spoken last week in the interest of fairness, in the interest of representing multiple viewpoints, the whole community. So I kind of wanted to just check up on that and see if there was any conversation that's taken place in the last couple of weeks.
What I said last week is that if people want to come and ask to do a vigil and want to use public space to do it, we will absolutely permit that.
I completely understand.
I say permit, not permit as in
I understand.
pejoratively allowed, but permit as in issue a permit. to allow you to
Permit,
do it.
not
Yes. Permit, yes.
And I'm not looking for a permit of any sort. I appreciate, your blessing to go ahead and have it, and we do plan to. What I'm not quite getting from this, and what's not sitting well with me, is that there is some sort of hypocrisy that's being displayed here by your decision to not support flags hanging, a vigil in honor of East Palestinian victims.
I would actually want to say that's not entirely true. I was going to wait until everyone was done, but, I had met with the Fellowship of Reconciliation earlier this week, and I am working with them through planning breaking of the fast to make it more interfaith as well as a place of healing, to remember those who've lost. That is something that I am working on.
I'm so glad to hear that.
But I wanted to let everyone know.
So, yeah, we
Yes.
mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, we mentioned it at the beginning. We found a date, I'm thinking April 3rd, 7:30, Nyack Senior Center. There'll be more information.
And that's something that the town is going to.
Yeah,
work
well,
together to support.
yeah. I mean, I'm doing it in my capacity as village trustee as well, so, it is going to be an open event, but
It's on our agenda
Yeah, it's
to
on-
permit to do the permit for that.
Right, so obviously, when we have more information, like a flyer and everything, it'll be readily disseminated.
Okay, I appreciate that. I look forward to the rest of the board supporting these types of initiatives.
Was this the visual you mentioned for the Muslim community?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
It's not a-
I
no,
know,
it's not a good-
right, I don't really wanna,
And you mentioned it's open to all communities.
Yeah,
but
it is.
I don't understand what a vigil can do, and I understand the importance and value of it, but if you can't even say what the vigil is for, you can't even name Palestine, I don't see the value in that. I appreciate your effort, but I don't see the value in it.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
Yeah.
John Kamada?
yeah, also.
John.
Back to follow. I just want to talk about the building department a little bit, briefly. There seems to be some confusion at the building department about what requires a building permit. And, I hope that somehow Bill Attorney, Andy, you guys can get together with the building inspector and the staff of the building department and let them know that if you're just doing a repair in your house, that's not structural and you're replacing material that's, exactly as it is, you do not require a permit. Because today we had someone who needs to do a roof repair in their house and they're asking if they need a permit. The building department says, yes, they need a.
I think the roof's in the code that they have to do the permit.
No, it's not.
Depends on the repair.
Yeah.
Depends on the repair. And I just as an aside, I spoke to Manny and he's going to speak to the person who asked that question. Was there different degrees? And he wanted to know what exactly is entailed. Some things like replacing some shingles, whatever, you don't need a permit. But if it starts to open up the roof and go down to the ceiling and expose insulation, you do need a permit. I mean, this is what and there's a new code, stretch code, which requires, it's a New York State code, called stretch. Right?
Yeah, we adopted that last.
And that was adopted the last time. So that changes somewhat the code that we have to adhere to.
Well, I guess the problem is if every homeowner undertaking a repair has got to call the building department to find out they need a permit, first of all, you got, a huge amount of, workload for the building department. That's not necessary. Also on our block, we've had people, we were all given these notices that we had to replace our sidewalks in 2 months. There's been all sorts of communication issues where you try to reach the building department, they don't get back to you, writing and phone, and they give you misinformation. And now they're telling some of our neighbors that they have to replace, they just repairing their sidewalks, they need a permit for when they're just actually using the same, the same materials and there's no plan, they're making people jump through hoops and spend money that shouldn't be spent. And also there's this time that the building department shouldn't be focusing on. There's a lot of other issues in the village that require their attention, so.
Maybe we need a clear cut schedule of where you need a building permit and where you don't, and what's at the discretion.
Well, it's really clear in the code. I mean, the code says that if it's a repair that is not structural, you do not require a
But
permit.
but the point is that the person who wants to do the repair could not state whether it's structural or not. I spoke to her, so I prefer to leave that.
Sure, but in general, the way it works is that you hire a contractor, the contractor can tell you, and the contractor, they generally have a relationship with the building department, they know if it's a permit or not, and they.
A roofer should know that they need a building.
Yeah, but she doesn't have a roofer yet. Right, so basically she needs to get the roofer, and the roofer has to be able to be in touch with the building department. I mean, you know, I don't want to get involved in the minutia of all this, but it seems that that whole thread kind of spiraled out of control. And basically, she was happy that I gave her, Manny's cell phone, so she's gonna contact her.
I mean, again, there are other communication issues I won't take your time with now, but it's been a lot of, just communication between the building department.
John, you know how to read, I mean, I'm not cutting you off for any reason other than to say, you know how, I mean, we have an open dialogue. If you have specific things, shoot me an email, copy Joe, copy the board if you'd like, and we'll look at it.
Okay.
I promise you.
You have a suggestion of how to streamline, I mean, great.
Right. Also, I just want to say that I support a ceasefire and that, I urge you, if there are other, people here on the board, that maybe you write your own resolution and maybe you have some problems with this one. Chuck Schumer today came out with a statement that, indicates that, it's clear that, our leadership in this country knows that there's a problem. There's a problem with the way the war is being executed. It's not just, it's not in anyone's benefit for the war to continue the way it is. It's not for Israelis or Palestinians, and maybe there's a way for you to support that violence should really be ended somehow. Thanks.
Good, all right, so moving on to the action now.
Oh, sorry, one more.
All right, this is the last public comment of the night. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm here today with a heavy heart to address the urgent humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in Gaza. The escalating violence has claimed the lives of thousands of innocent civilians, including women and children, and has left countless others injured, displaced, and traumatized. We cannot remain silent in the face of such senseless bloodshed. It is our moral obligation as members of the global community and as members of the human family to speak out against the atrocities being committed and to demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The situation is dire. Over 30,000 Palestinians have lost their lives since the beginning of the uprising events. The majority of the casualties are civilians, and the humanitarian crisis is worsening by the day, with hundreds of thousands of people facing starvation and famine, and essential services such as hospitals and schools destroyed. The need for urgent action is clear. This is the most documented genocide in human history. We are all able to see what our tax dollars are supporting in real time. Closer to home, I am seeing politicians and representatives of the county publicly show their support for the apartheid regime known as Israel, as well as showing their support to the local Jewish community as they grieve. I have not seen the support shown equally to the residents of the community who are Muslim or their supporters, who are experiencing tremendous loss and facing threatening anti-Semitic behavior from their neighbors. I also have not seen any compassion shown for the innocent people in Gaza. As a lifelong resident of Nyack, I call upon my elected officials before me here today to take a stand for peace. Over 65% of Americans are demanding this ceasefire. I ask for you to join the growing list of 70+ cities in the United States, including Hudson, New York, and most recently Hampton, New York, and Weehawken, New Jersey, who have passed a ceasefire resolution. I urge my representatives to use their influence to pressure and to call upon the Biden administration to prioritize diplomatic efforts to facilitate a ceasefire and to provide humanitarian aid in Gaza. Together, let us send an unmistakable message that the residents of Nyack demand peace, justice, and dignity for all.
Right.
Sorry, can I just say one thing?
No, I'm sorry, we've closed public
Just
comment.
one thing, real quick, like the interfaith dinner, like that's not like we're really asking for.
No, I recognize that,
Right.
but I also know that there has to be a middle ground and the
No middle, yeah.
Ma'am,
This is
I'm
about
not,
war and
look, okay,
religion.
we're not.
All
we
right,
can
all
talk
right,
about this
public
now.
comments over.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you
not
for all for
gonna-
being here. Let's move on to the agenda that we have. 7-1, resolution 2024-39, accepting the audited voucher survey. Can I get on the table?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution, we can skip over. Next couple, we've already handled them. Down to resolution 2024-43. Resolution approve a permit application for Berea's Church event in Memorial Park. Can I get it on the table?
Motion.
Second.
This is application for July 6th, the upper lawn from 8 PM to 11 PM to show a movie, and exclusive use of the basketball court on Sunday, July 7th for a basketball, some sort of tournament. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Wait, I have a question.
Sure.
Have they done this before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a long time, yeah.
This is like the condensed version of what they normally have.
The condensed version.
Yeah, there was a lot last year.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 24-44, resolution to approve Marie Lorenzini to serve as NIAC liaison to the Rockland County Municipal Planning Federation, which is where dinner I was at tonight. Motion second, what a perfect person, Marie. If she was here, we would have moved it up so we could thank her in person for service, continuing her service to the village. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's it. I think for the motions, we pushed off resolution 45 to the next meeting to get some more information on it. We're up to department reports. Orangetown Police Department, there's no report other than the fact that the chief did come to the event with Supervisor Kenny and did talk about the increase. They have increased patrols in the downtown. He introduced a young man who seemed much too young to be a police officer, but has been a police officer for like 5 years, and who has been one of the people that's been assigned to do a lot of the work in Nyack. We talked about that at some length at the event, and I'm very grateful to the police department for their taking it into consideration all the concerns that we had about being more present on the streets, and they have done that. Village administrator report.
I have a number of items under new business.
Okay.
I'd rather just
do it there.
Get that.
Village clerk.
We have to set some budget workshops.
Some dates.
Yeah, so I will give you all the preliminary budget on Wednesday, through email.
Okay.
And then, you guys need to figure out some dates to go over it together.
All right, do we want to talk about dates now?
Can we do that?
We need 2 dates in April for special budget workshops that are open to the public that are not on the normal budget, not on the normal village board schedule. We usually do them around 5 o'clock on weekdays. I would suggest we have a meeting on the 11th.
And that's when the public hearing on the budget should take. It can be the hearing on a draft of the budget, doesn't need to be.
Should we do the meeting before that, or should we have a budget meeting before
One of
that?
them anyway, yeah.
All right, can I suggest we do, we could do one, I would say, may I ask, like, look at Wednesday nights, the 3rd or the 10th? Is that good for anybody, for everybody?
I won't be here. I'm gonna be gone until the 13th of April,
From when?
from March 30th.
Okay.
Can we get one in before the end of March?
I'm really tight, because I'm gonna be away, for a bit of that. I could, I have RCC that day. We have a village board meeting on the 28th. Right? And we have a workshop that night. I can't do it before the 29th. And you're away as of the 30th, right? Until the
13th.
All right, so let's put one within that period. She can miss the first one, we'll fill her in, and then she can be here for the second one and you'll be here for the.
You'll be.
We'd be here for the
Wednesday
meeting.
one.
You're not gonna be here for the meeting on the 11th also. Okay, so.
How about April 4th, Thursday at 5?
Is that good for everybody else besides?
Yeah, pending any work-related issues, that should be fine. But I won't know that.
I'm okay with that. All right, so tentatively set for Friday, Thursday at 5 PM.
Donna, if you want to meet prior to your trip to go over individually.
And I'll send you,
Thank you.
I'll email you because I do a whole like analysis of it
Yeah,
that she
you
gets
do.
me, and I'll send you that so you can, wherever you are, it'll be the fun reading that you can do on your way.
Yeah.
Even you some plane rides.
I'm gonna, yeah,
And then.
I could do it then. Bring my
All right,
phone home.
then she's back on the 13th, so what, sticking to the Thursday night schedule, can we do it Thursday, the 18th,
What time?
5 o'clock?
I actually have a trade show from the 16th to the 18th in the city. So I will be back late. Can we do it a little bit later than 5 o'clock?
How late?
Like 6 o'clock?
You know, get on the 18th anyway?
No, I'm back. I'll do it.
Oh.
I'm just listening to how late we're gonna.
What time's
Yeah.
the, well, the budget meetings usually don't go that
Yeah,
long. We
they
don't,
know, like.
the budget meetings don't go on for, because we
No,
don't
they
have.
don't.
You got how long goes?
How about 6 o'clock on the 18th?
Can you prepare at 6?
Yeah, I'll make them back.
All right, so 6 o'clock on the 18th.
Can you send us a memo about the dates, so I don't have to figure out how to put it into my phone, so.
Oh, really good. Okay.
So that's Thursday, the 4th at 5 PM, Thursday, the 18th at 6 PM. And then would we be voting on this at the 25th?
There'll be a public hearing on the 11th. You can make any changes after that hearing that you
Do we
want.
have to set the public hearing now? Set a date for the public
You
hearing?
can if you'd like. We don't have to set it now, we can set it on the 28th.
Okay, all right, we'll just do that then, that's fine. All right, so we got our 2 budget meetings, we're good on that?
I'm good with that.
All right, thank you all, and I apologize to Donna that we were forced to do one while she's away.
That's okay.
The next item, the old business, all right. Let me look at these. I'm thinking that given the hour, getting into one discussion about the ARB scope, and the DMU two, we're not necessarily at the strongest moment to do it. Let me just tick off some of these other things that, they just want to be able to knock them off. Now there's a lot of things here that, all right. I'll leave it to the board to decide. What do we want to do here with these? We've had people here who obviously want to speak to these issues or ask about these issues with regard to the ARB. Let's start at the ARB scope. Where we left that was the issue of notice for people who, it was an ARB. The idea was that we would not need ARB approval of a change that did not, if it impacts the front of the building, it always has to go. If it
Right.
doesn't impact the building and it affects less than 25%?
30%.
30% of the space, it doesn't need to go, but if it affects more than 30% on the sides of the back, then you need to go to ARB approval.
Right, the original concept was a more dramatic reduction in ARB scope where the rear of the building was simply removed from consideration. The board had its worries about that because some changes to the rear might be visible and impactful in some way. And so the revised proposal from staff is to say, well, anything that happens to the front, same old, goes to ARB, even if you're just switching out a window. The sides and rear would have a threshold set of 30% of the area so that minor modifications would not have to go to the ARB or be noticed publicly for public meetings and so on. It's all in an effort to try to reduce the number of cases that are basically inconsequential. They go to the ARB, they cost money and people have to do designs and hire architects, make pictures and pay money for applications and so on and so forth.
Is it possible to list, for this resolution, the items that would not, some things that are under the 30%?
Like a typical examples?
Typical example.
Right.
Windows, doors, this way, get them, meat on bones, as they say.
In terms of
This, what can go, and by the way, I spoke to Manny, I asked him, what do you mean by 30% elevation? And he said, well, the elevation is the side of the house. And he says it's in the code, it's a definition. There isn't a definition of elevation. So he's gonna put that back in. So basically it's the sides. I was assuming it's the height, 30% height elevation.
It does not include the roof.
Does not include the roof, that's right. That's right. So, if you have something like that,
Right, a little more explanation as to what typical projects would qualify or
exactly
not, yeah.
I think that would help.
Maybe with some pictures.
Whatever. And I think also this in conjunction with the discussions about changing the order of the, in other words,
giving Manny.
That one is on my list as low hanging fruit that just makes sense.
Yeah.
To send a full site plan to the ARB first before the planning board sees it. Virtually everybody thinks that's putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
And if the village board just changed that, it would be a huge gain and sort of a rational process.
Well, I never understood why it happened to the ARB first and then the planning board.
Just because it's written into the law, it's a
I
very,
know.
it's a very limiting instruction to say the ARB simply must go first.
Right.
In all cases.
Exactly. And my objection to the change in the ARB code was because projects came before the ARB that involved planning board functions, like additions to the house or whatever. And so if it goes to the planning board first, then there'll be automatic notice to the neighbors.
Right, and they can decide if it needs to go to ARB.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it triggers some other planning board or zoning issue, before people get into the niceties of like what color and what kind of shingles and whether you have
Exactly.
mullions on your window or not. et cetera.
Exactly. So that makes sense to me. The whole changing this whole entire process will both make it more logical and simplify.
So that's why you have, I believe, we put a memo in your packet about providing drafts of two code amendments. One was to release the village from this dictum that the ARB must go first on all land use issues. And the other was to give the village a law that would enable the village to remove someone from the land use board if they don't show up.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, you literally can't do that. Like someone could be appointed and just miss half the meetings. And you don't have the ability to say, listen, this isn't really working out. We'd like to put someone in your place.
Was that in the memo that, I mean, we got so many memos
Yes.
this week. So that was in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of the drafts.
All right, so what's our posture on this right now? Where are we from on the process? How a bill becomes a law?
I mean, those are basically easy to write, like there's draft in there. I can come back on the 28th with we were planning on having a workshop on the 28th, actually on housing policy. But I could give you we've already given you, but I could re-give you those two draft laws, which are viewed by planning anyway as
These are both the ARB laws about changing the order as well as the 30% rule.
Well, the 30% rule is in your hands as a draft law. These all
We
are
have that
basically,
now.
but you've already discussed that one. We just need to know whether you want to move forward with that or not. The next step would
Moving
be.
forward means setting a public hearing.
Yeah, set a public
Which we can
hearing.
then discuss it at more length.
Right.
And
It's good though, when we do a hearing, to be as close as you can be to a view, at least a majority view on it, because if you change a draft law significantly, you have to set a new public hearing. So when we do legislation,
We'll not get the
we try
draft,
through
right,
discussion to
okay.
get as close as we can. Then you hear from the community.
All right, he has things he wants to change in that draft law, so let's put it off for 2 weeks
All right.
to get.
I want any draft. I want to
Wants to add some
Yeah,
language.
you've asked specific
Examples.
questions, I need to get back to you on that.
Okay.
The other two, the releasing the village from the mandate of the ARB going first and giving the village a law that will enable you to remove somebody from a board if they don't show up, are also already written. And, we could, if you want.
Those are in the
to move forward-
packet?
Yeah.
All right, can I,
If you wanna move
let's
forward with that,
do a public hearing. We can get those two.
We can set a public hearing for early May.
May, you wanna do it in May?
No, late April, early May. I try to be careful about pacing because you got 30 days to Rock County Planning Department and it.
All right, whatever.
So-
What date would you suggest for a public hearing
I
on
would
those two
suggest,
matters?
or like the first meeting in May.
All right, so motion, can I get a motion to set a public hearing on May 9th at 8 o'clock in Nyack Village Hall on the two resolutions that or the two proposed laws that he has mentioned, which have to do with changing or at least releasing from the order of having the ARB have to go first, as well as allowing, removal of land use board members who have been frequently not present at meetings.
Right.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Can I just-
Any discussion?
Yeah, can I just make one point? Is it possible to get representatives from the ARB and the planning board here for that public hearing so that we can ask them questions and give them, I think they should be part of the discussion.
Definitely. I mean, I can send these to them immediately, and they can come to the next meeting or email you or whatever they want.
Yeah, I think it's important to hear from them.
I agree.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll set the public hearing for May 9th. I got all the details right. The Village Hall, May 9th, 8 o'clock, no earlier than 8 o'clock. All right, we have opened the conversation on, let's take the DMU two zone separately from the waterfront district. The DMU two was added to the zoning map. Do we know when it was? It was
2017.
When was that created?
Yeah, we don't know. It was within the last decade. It did not always exist.
It was after the comprehensive master plan, which is in 2015 or 16.
The DMU two, just to get the discussion on the table, the DMU two, the changes it makes to DMU one, so you can see it's on this map, so sometime after 2019, so the 2019 map does include the DMU two. The DMU two, the principal difference between DMU two and DMU one is DMU two relaxed a requirement in DMU one, where DMU one requires ground floor retail space. DMU two removed that requirement. So that's why the new buildings that have been built in the DMU two, principally the Montclair, the one on the corner of 9W, as well as the Diana Place, those all, there's no ground floor retail. They have lobbies on the ground floor. In the case of the Claremont or the Montclair, it basically it's a brick wall on the ground floor facing Main Street. The theory, I think the working theory is that by eliminating the requirement for ground floor retail, it made the buildings more financially viable to build, which is what spurred some construction since the change was made. Joe's made the suggestion that the construction has gone a little too far. I've made the suggestion that I think that I don't love the idea that as you walk up Main Street, you start losing the ground floor retail feel. I realize that we have a lot of ground floor retail vacancies within the village, but I still feel as if, if you're walking up Main Street, you want to make it walkable. It's not walkable if there's no ground floor retail. So the proposal's been suggested to, I think, eliminate DMU two and revert it back to DMU one, which would again reinstate the ground floor retail as well as probably change a little bit the composition of the buildings that would be built there.
Density and so forth.
Well, but they would be subject to DMU one now.
Yeah, DMU one, yes, right. There'll be a 35-foot height, I don't.
Did DMU change that though? I don't know if this, that's the thing, I don't know if DMU changed, I don't know, we don't have, the memo from Bob didn't make that clear. I will say this, I don't have. I kind of see the point of reverting back and keeping one or making changes to DMU two. What Bob Galvin has suggested, and we do have a memo on this, I don't know if we actually got it in time. That he has made some suggestions of things that we might want to do, maybe we just talked about it. Of things that we might want to do to DMU two to alleviate some of the concerns that you have without going right back to making it DMU one. And so why don't we make sure we get that written up? And you could work with Bob about making it digestible in terms of what he's proposing for that change.
And then you could take it and you could do a if he writes the memo, I'm not writing my own.
memo of the other memo?
No, I'll either my memo or his memo. His memo is fine, if we did his memo. Is everybody good with that? Like looking at that?
Yeah.
I would also suggest, and this has come up, is that for whatever reason, when we did pass, the cannabis legislation to allow for this the retail sales in the village of Nyack, we allowed them we sort of did this, we kind of named the districts and we said, we're gonna allow it in the commercial corridor, and then the big debate was, do we allow it in the DMU one? And then we never even talked about the DMU two, I don't know why, but we didn't specifically say, we absolutely can't have it in the DMU two, because I don't know why we would allow it here and then not here. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, so I sort of feel as if One of the things that we would do if we were adjusting the DMU two would be to, if we were so inclined, we can make this as a separate issue, because I know not everybody has the same opinion about the cannabis laws as I do, and as the board did when we passed it. That we at least look at equalizing that to make the DMU two and the DMU one the same with regard to that.
Although it would be moot because of the 1,000-foot rule. So you have the treehouse dispensary.
Just to clarify, it's actually a 2,000-foot rule, but it's temporary. It's 2,000-foot rule for a village of our size. But that 2,000-foot rule is only for the initial rollout of the dispensaries. That was not gonna always be in place. What's always gonna be in place is there is a limitation of the distance to a church. And there is a church right there, right smack in the middle of the DMU two, that would be a limiting factor. And that's a state law that we can't do anything about. And I think there's also a limitation to a school. But there's no limitation in the law about how close they can be to each other, other than a regulation put in place during the rollout that they wanted to start slow, so they didn't want to put them too close to each other. But that will someday go away. I don't know when, but no one knows anything about the cannabis board because
They take forever to do everything.
they could not. It's almost like it's just pure sabotage at this point. Like, it's almost laughable how badly it's been executed on every possible level.
I'm having PTSD from this conversation.
I'm sorry, I know you, your daytime job. The day job. So, all right, so let's get it on the agenda to talk about as old business next week, to talk specifically, but let's have some preparation from Bob about what he would suggest we do with the DMU two to address some of the concerns about the kind of corridor effect that was created by some of the new buildings, which I'm 100% in agreement about. With regard to the waterfront zone, I did send you a memo. I wrote it a while ago, but I had to pass it through Bob to make sure that I didn't misstate anything. He had a lot of suggestions, but a lot of them had to do with didn't have to do with me getting anything wrong. So I then sent it to you to identify, put a side by side, and let's make that public. Let's make sure we get it out into the public, because I know people would be curious to see it. It's a side by side comparison of the pre-2016 law and the current law as to what was changed. And my conclusion in the memo, which I shared with you, was that I think that the suggestion that we go back to the pre-2016 law I would not support that, because there's a lot of things in the 2016 revision that I think are unobjectionable, but are more sophisticated articulations of the concepts, that there's just more depth in the 2016 version than the pre-2016 version. However, the three big issues that you have addressed, which are the change of the height of the buildings from 45 to 52 as a max height, the change of the max width of the buildings from 60% to 70%, and the change of the max FAR from 0.95 to 1.5. You didn't think I'd get all three of those right, but I did. But those three changes, those three numbers they're connected. So it's like levers. So you move one and the other one's gonna move a little way. But we can look at all three of those, and then Joe's gonna want to. So what I would suggest is take a look at that memo. Let's have some one-on-one conversations, not group conversations, between now and then, and try to get a sense of what we're thinking about it. And we can come back and have a conversation about that when we talk about the DMU two. And it might be something that we might even bring up on the workshop and put on the agenda for the workshop, which is about housing. And those are both housing things. All right, is everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right. And please read the memo, because it did take a good part of my life. Thank you. I tried to be very fair. I hope I was. The memo proposing two changes to the code, that's in 9.1. We've talked about that, all right? We've talked about that, yes. Okay, that's what we talked about. 9.2, the work session agenda, the zoning code impacting housing development review of the TFR zone and the CC zone. Let's do this. Let's put that conversation off. Let's make the work session about the stuff we just talked about. I agree.
That's fine,
All right,
yeah.
so let's put those off to a future work session, not the one that we have coming up in 2 weeks.
So the work session will be on the DMU two?
And the waterfront zone, yes. Purely about those. They've been the subject of two other workshops, but we never really got to them. And then they were on the agenda today for old business, and we didn't really get to them because we've spent a lot of time on some other things today.
So that'll be on the 28th.
That'll be on the 28th at the workshop at 6:30. The workshop on 6:30 is gonna be about housing, and two of the housing things we're gonna talk about will be those. And since we're much further away from having any kind of decision-making or really any teeing up any decision-making on the TFR zone, the CC zone. We'll put those off to some future date.
Okay.
All right. 9.3, food truck in the park permit and policy, for those of you who are still here.
So I circulated a revised food truck permit. We have a hawking and peddling permit, which is one size fits all. And I put in it, this is not village law at this point, but it's a policy the village should adopt, saying if you have a generator, it's gotta be quiet and low emissions. We prefer local residents versus people from outside the village who have food trucks. And if you have an electrical hookup that can obviate the need for a generator, we like that too. There'll be the village has always permitted 2 food trucks for the park, plus the roaming ice cream truck that can go anywhere.
Right.
Sticking to that number as a cap. Just kind of reviewing what's my understanding, but it hasn't actually been written down anywhere that I know of anyway. It was I sent you a copy of that revised permit. The other thing, just to be completely transparent, I took out the part, it has a driver's license and ID, and I'm including the fire inspection requirement and the public health, like showing us your license that you have an approved kitchen. But I took out the thing about fingerprinting, because I found that it's really hard for people to find fingerprinting. The police department doesn't do it anymore. If you got a driver's license, like, I don't see why, personally anyway, a food truck owner or vendor would just be fingerprinted, whereas you routinely go to eat at restaurants, you don't have to see the fingerprints of the proprietor of the restaurant. That's my take on it anyway.
Single fingerprints.
No fingerprints.
Yeah.
I never knew we had that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a.
Getting fingerprints is a
hard to-
pain.
It's.
It's a pain.
They're going down to New York City and
It's like
stuff.
adopting a kid. It's the only time they will ask you the fingerprints.
Oh.
So
Um,
if the business,
Don't do
the
it.
food truck 2024, is
Yeah.
that the memo?
Yeah.
All right, what page is that memo on? Just,
It's in your packet, and it's just a sample of
What
the
Digital
application
pages,
form.
111.
Food truck, okay, I'll let them- All right,
Is there a
so,
reason,
good.
is there a reason there's only 2 food trucks in the park?
I think originally the village board didn't want to create a lot of new competition for existing restaurants, but it did want to give people in the marina and the park a food option. And so restricting it to the park and restricting the number, that was just, you know how it is, and that was just kind of the feeling of the
I want to say
threshold.
last year we went to 3. Last year we did a third because we wanted to help somebody out who was a NIAC person and we wanted to give them an opportunity.
Yeah.
See, my
Yeah.
foggy memory comes through
Well,
once in a
I
while.
wasn't the only one that too.
Yeah, thanks.
So there's Pop's Cuisine and,
I like how we think it and then she says, it, we're like, oh, it must be true.
Yeah,
Jennifer
it's
says it's true.
Well, because Jennifer
The fact that we remember it.
Jennifer's really who's church.
Jennifer's like, yeah, good. Jennifer says, yeah, I think it was 3. And we're all like, okay, so it's gospel then.
It was Pops, I thought,
It was
we
Pops
were waiting
and
for
then,
bongos at some point.
Bongo never shows
Yeah,
up.
he
He
never
does like a lot of
showed.
special events.
All right, let me say this. Can I just make this for the food truck? Permit looks fine. I mean, it's
Yeah.
fine. I think
Yeah.
getting rid of the fingerprinting is probably a positive thing. It's a pain in the
Yeah.
ass. I do though, set a deadline for people to make an application. Let's look at the application. I don't want to do a first come, first serve again. That to me was a very bad way of doing it. Put it out there. Let's get it up online. Let's get it up. I'll put it up on social media. If you want to apply for a food truck permit, get it in by April 15th.
Okay.
What date do we want to get them by? April 30th? I mean,
Yeah, 15th is good. I think we need to get rolling.
April 15th, get an application. We'll consider all of them
At
at the
once.
next meeting at once, rather than last time it was sort of like the rush to the first one in gets it. It seems really not right. And I don't think we should be limited to 2 if we think that there's more than 2 viable candidates. It's a different market that they service than the restaurant service.
The other thing is that they may say they'll be in the park 7 days a week, but they might not actually.
Yeah.
And so you could end up with 3
Scattered.
trucks down there at the same time.
Yeah.
Or you could end up with no truck there.
The only thing that would happen if we had 3 food trucks there at the same time is I would get a text message saying, hey, it's awesome, there's 3 food trucks here today. That's what I would get. I'd get 100 text messages from people about how great it is to have 3 food trucks there at one time. And then I'd probably get one angry phone call from one of the food truck owners. But like, that's I think let's see what we get.
As long as you're not worried about that.
Let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. I mean,
Okay.
we'll see what happens. But let's see what we
Maybe
get.
you set the deadline, maybe like March 31st instead, because the weather starts to get nice in April, they might
But
want
that's
to.
only like
Yeah, it's
That's
such
like
a short turnaround.
2 weeks away.
Yes.
Well, not for this year,
Not
but
for-
maybe for next.
Oh,
year.
next year, yeah. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But for this year,
Yeah.
let's say we're taking applications now, you have to get them by April 15th. Or what is April 15th? Whatever do it like a Friday. April,
Yeah, that's
15th is
tax.
tax day.
yeah, well, let's do it the week after that then. So
Does
they get a little-
anybody know?
April 19th, make it April 19th. It's a Friday. The 19th is a Friday. We have a meeting the next Thursday. We can look at them the next meeting. Get them by the 19th, gives people an opportunity to do their taxes and then fill out the form.
Besides the Taco Boys and Bongo, does anybody else know of any food truck owners who live in the village who we should be? I'm trying to reach out to the people who have the trucks.
I know, didn't,
Well, Frank Donato had one. I don't know if he still has one.
didn't.
Gypsy has one.
Yeah, and so does,
Yeah, Bachadona sold their truck.
It's still a truck?
JK.
They sold the
But-
truck?
Yeah.
Taco Boys has one too.
Yeah, I know, Taco, I got him already.
Oh, okay.
good.
Oh, Taco Boys?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yeah. I got it right here.
I'm ready to go. I forget everything I said. The Taco Boys, but they have to be there 7 days a week. And they have to stop at my house on the way down.
Way, who do you talk?
Doesn't matter. They can stop, they just make a little detour. I do love that Taco Boys. All right, next thing, we're getting punchy, and that's all my fault. We talked about community solar. We talked about the Phoenix Festival, Senior Center rental for the Nyack Art Collective on 3/19. Does anybody have an objection to the Senior Center, to the Nyack Art Collective? All right, we're good with that. Let's get a resolution next meeting. The fellowship reconciliation for that's what.
Next meeting will have already occurred. This thing is happening on March 19th.
Then, so, can I have a motion to approve the Senior Center rental of the Nyack Art Collective for March 19th at
Second.
6:30? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's approved. Resolution, whatever the number would be, 2446.
We do that for the iftar as well, so that I can confirm with them.
Can I get a motion for the rental of the senior center to the Fellowship of Reconciliation for the Interfaith Iftar Dinner on April 3rd at 7:30 to 9:30 PM?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's a motion, that's 47. We have communications. You can see in your packet, a gentleman, Alan Cram, has written us about, and Andy, why don't you tell us about, basically there's a couple of places in the downtown where they put the garbage out whenever they want to put the garbage out without really referencing the actual pickup schedule.
So let's
Garbage
talk a little
sits
bit
there.
about garbage.
Yeah, let's talk about
First of
garbage.
all,
We talked about sewers for like an hour.
every single day, I'm looking around and looking for overflowing cans and dumpsters and so on, and working with Mandy on that. It's absolutely a really important thing for the quality of life and the appearance of our street. And
Yeah.
I welcome anybody sending me a picture of an overflowing trash can
Okay.
dumpster. We'll try to. The particular location Mr. Cram was looking at, we dealt with that. I saw the same thing. He gave us 3 pictures in the same spot. They were putting
Yeah.
black trash. There was a tenant who came and left. I talked to the landlords. I called the landlords in that vicinity and talked to them and find out if they have a contract with Carlo Menudo, and if they don't, they need to get one with him or somebody else. Sometimes we open bags to see whose they are.
I've done
Seriously.
that in my condo.
Oh, yeah, this is.
Yeah, I mean, you guys just, the bigger policy issue the village has is that the law says you're supposed to have containers for trash.
Mhm.
And you'll know, if you go down to Strawberry Place, which by the way is having their 50th anniversary this year, which is pretty exciting. He just got a bunch of toters. They had, there were rats in the vicinity, and Vinny, as part of his effort, in addition to having pest control and stuff, got these big plastic toters. The problem is, he's kind of got no place to put them. So it's good to put trash bags in toters, these big plastic bins, but then I don't necessarily want them out on the sidewalk 7 days a week, like he has to pick up every single day. And so I talked to them, and I talked to Carlos, this guy there, and we actually dragged him down to the basement. They have a narrow stairway down to the basement. So they're gonna try to keep them off the sidewalk, but it's hard, like rat prevention requires containers. Containers require storage indoors. If you look at the barber shop on Franklin and Main, they always have their trash because they got no place to decide. I talked to what used to be Pizza Bistro, he's in the same boat, he invested in toters because he wants to be clean, but where's he gonna put them? So the village has a little bit of a paradoxical situation with this commercial trash put out issue, where you wanna have containers, but you got no place to put them inside in many cases. Very few of these buildings have a back alley that they can service out of. And so there's something that we need to keep an eye on. As more and more businesses do the right thing and containerize, we're gonna have more and more containers on the sidewalk. We don't always have a good place to put them. You'll notice on the corner where Turriello's is, like they always put their back, but he's like, where is he gonna put 5 big plastic toter trash cans? They throw out an enormous amount of trash. The animals get in there, they start ripping the bags open, you get a mess on the street. I knock on their door and say, sweep it up. They do that immediately because they're good neighbors. But this is kind of the dynamic. So we do get trash put outs which are on time and ready for Bermuda to pick them up. They still get picked over by animals in the middle of the night. And we get some trash put outs where the other reason why the businesses are using containers is because people throw stuff on top of their pile. And sometimes it's so much junk that the solid waste carter basically says, no, thank you.
Is there a suggestion for something we should do?
Sorry. Right now, my action is basically to chase these things. Because I don't want to require everybody to use containers, because I'll end up with a parking lot instead of a sidewalk.
Right.
And so we've been chasing the problems as they arise, and that works pretty well. But there are occasions where it's hard, and a pile will sit there for a few days until we try to figure out whose it is and kind of hammer them to come back and get it.
Let's be, for the people that do put stuff out like 2 days before pickup, let's make sure that, violations are coming on that.
Yeah, we do, we really do.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I mean, it might not work in all cases, but some of the areas, like in front of the Big Red Book or the Stein Street Bridge, why can't we put a container over there?
Right.
Because it's out of the way, it's not in the mains.
We could allow them to, I was thinking, where's a convenient place to store toters where they could just grab them? I don't know, we have to look at that.
That out of the way, and also on Park, the same thing for instance,
Well, there are businesses on those side streets. They don't
yeah,
necessarily.
I know, I understand, but like, for instance, on Park, there's a big stretch.
Big stretch on the west side of the street
On
that is
the-
just a brick wall.
On the
Yeah.
east side, actually.
It's on the east side.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that where like,
More the
wheels
west
that
side,
come
'cause
to
the east side is the tire
No,
restaurant.
that's on, that's
the east side's the Thai restaurant?
Yeah.
Well,
in any case-
anyway, his point is a good one.
Yeah. we need
Let's see
to-
if there's something where we can put it a little bit out of the way,
Yeah.
but not in a way that's gonna block a different business and we have a different
Right,
problem.
that's the issue.
Alright, this is a good suggestion. All right. I'm gonna just simply say we're closing the discussion on the garbage.
Yes.
I'm not asking for anything. And if anybody has any public comment, you can send us a sternly worded email about it. All right, the Penguin Pledge, we got a nice email thanking us from Bob Ancura, who has he's like the fire chief and he's also the
Under sheriff.
And I can never know which role he's playing when he's at a particular thing. It depends. But he's a wonderful guy and we're very happy we could have been a part of that and we were able to host that. We've been invited to a Meals on Wheels event. What's that event? I don't even know.
They have an annual campaign where people can volunteer.
Oh, to deliver.
Deliver food.
Oh, okay.
Things like that.
Yeah, let's make sure you find, I think that's everybody got a mail. I'll get something in the mail about that. All right, good. All right, these are the last chance for public comment. If anybody wants to make public comment. God help your soul. All right, no public comment. We do have an executive session that we have to do. So we're gonna go into that. After that, we will adjourn. There will be no further business taken in public. So you are all free to leave and we will take, can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
All in favor? All right, we'll start the executive session.
Hold on a second, I got it. Sorry, Johnny.
We're not gonna start. We're still here.
I was gonna say, I hope you guys go that far, at least get a good. You threw me off with those 2 minutes. I had a 3 minutes done ready.
Man, I wanna let others speak.